Harry stared dully out into the dripping trees. Nothing but trees as far as he could see. He shook his head impatiently, then lurched to his feet. That's it then. Better get on with it. Ron and Hermione had gone, and they weren't coming back. Foolish to mourn over that. He'd always expected to end up alone. But then why had they insisted on coming? It only made things worse when they left. He packed up the tent quickly, eager to be gone, although he didn't know where to go. Any place would be better than the Forest of Dean, where his friends had deserted him. Harry couldn't help feeling bitter. He was as hungry as Ron, as frustrated as Hermione. He thought of apparating, but had no destination in mind, at least none that he could risk going to. Instead, he trudged down to the roadside and began walking. He lost track of how far trees gave way to scattered houses, and then more houses in clusters. The day wore on toward dusk. Then Harry caught the smell of smoke. Odd, he felt. It was not really raining hard, but still he thought it was enough to dampen any fires. He glimpsed flames ahead and realized that they came from no ordinary fire. Fiend fire. Harry ran. He could see the house clearly now, a modest house surrounded by cloaked and masked Death Eaters. They were laughing and jeering, standing well clear of the blaze but not far enough to allow anyone to get away. They wanted the people in the house to be burned alive. The front door burst open, and spells exploded from the interior. At the same instant, the back door slid open and a slim figure sped out, running for the trees. But the Death Eaters had anticipated that. One of them, lurking in the shadows, seized the girl and flung her on the ground with a triumphant howl. Harry recognized Fenrir Greyback, the country's most feared werewolf, and took a desperate chance. The Death Eaters hadn't seen him, and he cast a blasting curse straight at Greyback. His aim was true, and the werewolf's head exploded. Harry was already moving. The person casting from the front door was still throwing stunners, but even as he watched, the spells changed to bone breakers. Some part of Harry approved. He'd long since realized that a war couldn't be won if one side could kill with impunity while the other stuck to non-lethal spells. A bombardment blew part of the wall out, and the bone breakers stopped. Harry took out another cloaked figure with a cutting curse, then switched to the Sectum Sempra spell he'd gotten from Snape's old potions book. This time, he knew exactly what it would do, but he didn't hesitate. Gloves were off. The Death Eaters were confused. Another went down, and realizing the tide had turned, they began apparating away. Harry hit one more, heard a scream of pain, and they were gone. The flames mounted higher as Harry bounded towards the doorway, saw 3 inert bodies and levitated them out, just before the roof fell in. One was a slender blonde girl, still clutching a wand in one hand and a slightly younger girl in the other. Harry thought she looked familiar. The other was an older woman whose wide-open, glazed eyes told him she was beyond aid. The 2 girls began stirring. The younger one caught sight of Harry and cried out. This caused the other to feebly lift her wand, but she couldn't maintain her hold. Her arm was obviously broken. "It's okay," Harry whispered. "Daphne Greengrass, right, and that's your sister." She struggled to form words, but her little sister piped up instead. "You're Harry Potter. Yeah, are you hurt?" "Daphne is, and Mrs. Davis. I don't know about Tracy." Harry remembered the girl Greyback had caught. "I'll go check," he hesitated. "I can't leave you here alone in case they come back with reinforcements. Are you able to walk?" "I think so." Daphne found her voice. Harry lifted her carefully to her feet, careful not to jostle her arm. Her sister scrambled up, still staring at Harry. Daphne gasped when she spotted the mangled corpse of Greyback, and the other girl made a retching noise. "Did you do that, Potter?" He lifted his chin defiantly. "I did," she nodded slowly. "Good." Then she saw the body nearby. "Tracy." She knelt beside the other girl and tried to turn her over. "Is she?" "She's still breathing," Harry said. He turned the body over and the Greengrass girls screamed. Tracy's face was drenched in blood from Greyback's claws. The cuts were wider and deeper than Bill Weasley's, and Harry panicked. She has to get to St. Mungo's," the younger girl exclaimed. "She can't, Tora, you know it isn't safe. The Death Eaters will find her there," Daphne managed. Both sisters looked to Harry. "What can we do for her?" "Potter, Harry, please help her." "Please," Tora added. Harry asked Daphne, "Do you know how to apparate?" She nodded. "Okay, you take your sister, I'll take Tracy. We'll go to Charing Cross Road, not far from the Leaky Cauldron. Not the best choice, but we have to hope we can make it without being seen." "What? Why there?" "They won't track us from there. I have an idea." They landed near the Muggle entryway, and Harry immediately called Creature. The elf was there instantly. "Creature, did the Death Eaters access the house?" "They did, Master Harry, but Creature took hold of the wards and pushed them out." "Yes, Creature did. The House of Black punished bad wizards and locked them out for good. Only Creature and Master Harry may enter without harm. But Dumbledore is dead, and he was the secret keeper. Old Dummel's wizard's ward had fallen, but the House of Black has its own power, Master Harry, better than old wizard Dummel's. Good. Creature, will you please take this lady into the house, then come for the others? Creature will, Master Harry. With a loud cracking noise, Creature and Tracy vanished. Where'd he go? Torrey asked. My house, Harry answered absently, still preoccupied with finding medical help for Tracy. By the time Creature returned, Harry had formulated a plan. Where are we? Daphne whispered, crouching protectively over her sister. This is the House of the Black family, Harry explained. I am head of the family, so the wards now answer to me. You are perfectly safe here. It's creepy, Astoria piped, looking around at the peeling wallpaper and musty drapes. Daphne gave her sister a withering look. It isn't. It is safe, and that's what matters. It is safe, isn't it, Pot Harry? Probably the safest house in England, Harry admitted, trying to siphon the blood from Tracy's face. Creature, you need to go to Hogwarts. There you'll find an elf named Winky. See if you can persuade her to bond with the Black family. We're going to need help. If you can safely do so, bring Pomfrey here. If not, get what medical supplies you can and hurry back. I don't think that elf will be able to bring any help, Daphne ventured, as the long case clock ticked away. Hogwarts is overrun with Death Eaters, and Snape is headmaster now. That's why we left school, even though attendance now is mandatory. Harry studied the two Greengrass girls. Daphne was blonde and blue-eyed with delicate bones. Her sister was a shorter, curvier version of Daphne. Both were beautiful. Harry felt they didn't belong in the dark confines of the Black townhouse. He forced his attention back to Tracy. Try as he would, he could not stop the bleeding. Do you know any healing spells? He asked the girls. Both shook their heads. Okay, I know only one, but we don't dare wait any longer. Harry cast Episky, the spell Tonks had shown him months before. He held his breath, and the bleeding slowed to a trickle. Ooh, that worked, Torrey Greengrass breathed. Could you fix Daphne's arm now? Maybe we should wait and see if Pomfrey shows up, Harry demurred. That one was pretty rough. Just then Creature popped back in, clutching Winky. Both elves were loaded down with potions. Healer cannot get away, Creature shook his head sadly. But Winky is here to help. Winky is a good house elf, Winky said anxiously. Winky's old master had Winky care for mistress in her illness, then for young master. Winky will help if Master Harry will bond with Winky, Harry nodded. Winky seized his hand in both of hers, and there was a flash of golden light. Now Winky has a master again, the little elf announced happily. Yes, Winky, so can you help Daphne? The elf trotted over to Daphne and touched her arm, which snapped back into place. Then she looked at Tracy. Werewolves attack, but not full moon, so mistress won't transform. Master Harry has healed her enough so she will not die. Potions will help, but she needs to go to bed. Harry nodded. Put her in Remus' old room, Creature. And the Greengrass sisters can have the one the twins used to share. Creature levitated Tracy towards the stairs. Harry turned to Daphne and Torrey. Are either of you hungry? Daphne shook her head. I just want a bath, Torrey nodded. But what about Tracy? Harry considered. Her injuries aren't fatal, she'll recover eventually. Winky will look after her. Creature will show you to a room, try to get some rest. Thank you, Harry, Daphne said slowly. Astoria echoed her sister wearily. Then Creature led them away. Harry realized he was exhausted too. He headed up to Sirius' room, the one place he felt content. He took a shower in record time, then fell into bed. He never stirred until dawn was breaking. Harry dressed swiftly and made his way to the kitchen where Creature was baking muffins. How is Tracy, Creature? Fever has broken Master, but she is very restless. Winky had to give a sleep potion so she won't wake until evening. And the other girls? We're okay, Harry. Daphne came quietly into the room. She was wearing a pink dress he remembered seeing on Ginny, although it was both too loose and too short. She caught his eye. I found some clothes in the wardrobe, is it? It's fine. Ginny and Hermione left some things when they were here. You may as well use them until we get a chance to get you something else. She bit her lip. We don't have any money, Harry. Well, Torrey and I each have a trust vault at Gringotts, but we can't get to them. I think Tracy has one too. Don't worry about that right now, Harry told her. How'd you end up living with Tracy anyway? I take it that was Tracy's house. And her mother. Daphne nodded. Tracy's mother married a squib, so they didn't live in the wizarding world. When our father was killed last year, she took us in. We thought it would be safe, living in such a remote spot. Turned out it wasn't. Harry had to ask. Was your father a Death Eater? She shook her head vigorously. Never. The Greengrass family has always been neutral, but one of them, think it was not Senior, said, "We'll show you what the Dark Lord thinks about neutrality." He cast the killing curse on my father, and Theo not taunted us about it at school. We ran away on the very first Hogsmeade weekend and never went back. We were scared to. Tracy left also. What about your mother? She died when Astoria was born. I wasn't quite 2, so neither of us remembers her. At least you had your father. Daphne reached for a muffin. We did, and he was a kind man, but he was very. He had many business interests, and I don't think he knew quite what to do with 2 little girls. I've always looked after Astoria. Is she sick? Daphne didn't seem surprised by the question. Not sick exactly, but she has a weakness. We think it's from an ancient blood curse, but nobody is sure. She's all right if she gets plenty of rest. She'll probably sleep until noon unless she gets too hungry. She reached for another muffin. These are excellent, Creature beamed and refilled Daphne's teacup. I should go and relieve Winky. The poor elf has been up most of the night with Tracy. I went in to give her a bit of a break after my bath, and I saw we need more Dittany. I could brew some later if I had the ingredients. Good idea, Harry approved. We can't keep getting them from Hogwarts, but don't go yourself, send an elf. They won't attract attention. Don't worry, I'm not planning to step outside this place. You said it's your house. It's the Black Townhouse. I inherited it from my godfather. For the first time, Harry found himself comfortable talking about Sirius, his love of pranks, his friends the Marauders, his affection for Harry. Somehow it didn't hurt so much to remember him while gazing into Daphne's partisan eyes. Everyone thought he wanted to kill you, Daphne said slowly, and all the time he was accused of a crime he didn't commit. Harry agreed. I still plan to clear his name someday, and revive the House of Black to honor him. Daphne nodded emphatically. You should. This is a fascinating house. I can almost feel the magic surrounding us. It's a bit rundown, but that's just cosmetic. Daphne was staring all around the kitchen. It's so well built. I love it. Harry shrugged. What was your house like? Daphne's eyes lost their light. A typical manor house for purebloods, lots of marble and portraits. It was a lot like Malfoy Manor, just smaller. Was. Death Eaters burned it. Fiendfire again. There's nothing left. I'm sorry. She shook her head. It was just a house, never a home. A place to keep Astoria and me where we could be looked after by a house elf. The elf died soon after Tori got her Hogwarts letter, so my father figured we didn't need another. You're lucky to have Creature and Winky. She got slowly to her feet. Later today, after I check on Tracy, do you mind if I explore this house? Sure, but be careful. There's a lot of dark objects around, though we removed the worst ones. How can you do that? It's disgusting. Astoria stood in the doorway of the room where Tracy lay. Daphne kept dabbing Dittany paste into Tracy's scars. I don't mind, Astoria snorted. You were always squeamish, always. Leave it to the house elves. Winky has been up most of the night and Creature is busy. Tracy needs me and I am going to help her, squeamish or not. Well, I need you too. Figure out another place for us to go. I can't stand it here. It's safe here. Harry told me this house has the strongest wards in the country. So, it's Harry now. Astoria stared at her sister. How'd you get so friendly all of a sudden? Oh, I don't know, Daphne said sarcastically. Maybe when he rescued us, saved our lives. He didn't save Tracy's mother, and Tracy will probably wish he hadn't bothered when she sees what a mess she is. Daphne opened her mouth to make a stinging retort, then realized Tracy's eyes were open. Astoria had seen it too. I am sorry, Tracy. I didn't mean... What did you mean? Tracy clutched at Daphne's arm. What happened to me? I know it was Greyback. Am I a werewolf? No, not that. He wasn't transformed so you aren't infected, but there's a scar. Tracy's eyes met Daphne's. Show me. Afterwards, she said nothing except to beg to be alone for a while. Do you think it's safe to leave her? Astoria whispered as they made their way downstairs. She won't hurt herself if that's what you're worried about, Daphne responded. She is stronger than you think. She turned away from her sister to find Harry holding a tray. I heard you say Tracy is awake. I thought she might be hungry. Hungry, Astoria's voice was shrill. Only you, Potter, would think someone would be hungry at a time like this. She has scars. His steady gaze didn't waver. He said nothing, but Daphne caught her breath. If anyone knew about scars, it would be Harry Potter. He knocked softly, then slipped inside Tracy's room. The Greengrass sisters never found out what Harry said to her. He wouldn't say, and Tracy refused to tell them. But when he came back down to the kitchen, the tray was empty. Daphne wandered through 12 Grimmauld Place, fascinated by the way in which the old house exuded magic. Despite Astoria's constant complaints, she liked the house and the sense of safety it gave her. Tracy, a quieter, more subdued Tracy, made fun of her and tended to side with Astoria in disparaging the house. "Just wait," Daphne retorted. "This house could be beautiful with a few renovations." "It's a moldering pile," Astoria argued. "Surrounded by a square with more moldering piles," Tracy added. "Half these houses are unoccupied. And the other half are full of muggles," added Astoria. "I wish we could explore the neighborhood," Daphne said regretfully. "I've never spent much time in Muggle London." "Who'd want to?" Astoria wrinkled her nose. "I wish we could go back to Hogwarts." "No, you don't," Tracy objected. "The Death Eaters are in charge there." "They're in change everywhere," Astoria grumbled. "Not here," Daphne smiled. "Here we are safe. But we can't go anywhere else, it's so boring." "It doesn't have to be," Daphne said slowly. "I've been thinking, what if we each took on a project while we're here to pass the time?" "Like what?" Tracy demanded. "There's a garden in the back. It's terribly overgrown, but you always liked gardening. Herbology was your favorite class." "I guess it would be something to do," Tracy said grudgingly. Daphne nodded. "And Tori and I could maybe do a bit of redecorating. This house has lots of possibilities." Astoria sniffed disdainfully. "It's nothing like Greengrass Manor." Daphne didn't mention how pleased she was about that. Greengrass Manor was a cold, unwelcoming place as far as she was concerned, and she really couldn't mourn its destruction. "Also," she hesitated, "I thought maybe we could get Harry to help us with some training, like he used to do for the DA." Astoria shrugged. "Guess it couldn't hurt." Tracy simply nodded. It was Harry who demurred. "I don't think I know more than you do." "You could show us a decent shield charm," Tracy suggested. In the end, they decided to train for a few hours after breakfast, work on their projects after lunch, and do research after dinner. The days seemed to fly by for Daphne. Harry spent time in the library researching, and when he finally explained about the Horcruxes, she immediately sat down and tried to help. "You can't really get to that snake yet," she said thoughtfully. "But I'm willing to bet there's one at Hogwarts. Something belonging to Rowena Ravenclaw, maybe." "Why her?" "It seems like the dark." "I mean, Riddle was searching out things from the Founders. Hufflepuff's cup, Slytherin's locket, and I think you should destroy that right away." "How? I don't have the sword anymore. Dumbledore left it to me, but the Ministry took it back." "I think Fiendfire might work," Daphne considered. "It's hard to control," Harry said doubtfully. "But I guess it's worth a try." "Cast a shield around it," suggested Daphne. "Out in the back." He took her advice, but try as he would, the fire burned half the weathered growth away. Still, he managed to put it out at last, and Tracy commented that it would make planting somewhat easier. "That still leaves one more artifact plus the snake," Harry explained. "If it is an artifact of Ravenclaw, perhaps the Grey Lady would know," Daphne suggested. "She's the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower." "If it's at Hogwarts, how will we get it?" Harry said uneasily. Then he brightened. "What?" Daphne demanded. For the first time in days, he grinned at her. "I have a plan." They followed Neville Longbottom through the tunnel concealed behind the portrait at the Hog's Head Inn. Daphne kept her eyes on Harry's back, her heart pounding so loud she feared the others could hear it. Astoria plodded after her, whimpering a little. And Tracy brought up the rear, face impassive. They'd tried to leave Astoria behind, but she'd latched onto the portkey at the last second. "I want to go back to Hogwarts. I hate it here. If you're going, why can't I?" Well, now she'd got her wish. Tracy had insisted on coming as well, pointing out that she was of age and Harry couldn't tell her what to do. Daphne had said the same thing, even though she was terrified. But she couldn't stay at Grimmauld Place, not knowing if he'd ever come back. And who knew, maybe one more wand would make the difference. She wasn't feeling so optimistic a few hours later. Harry was missing, and someone said he'd gone into the forest. Daphne prayed it wasn't true. She'd lost sight of Tracy, and Astoria had dived into a nearby broom closet and braced the door shut. All round, the battle raged. Daphne stumbled against a girl she recognized who'd been on the Gryffindor Quidditch team. "Katie, right?" The other girl jerked her head in acknowledgement. "I can shield while you cast," Daphne offered. "Okay." That was all they said, but they found a rhythm that worked and brought down Yaxley. A third girl joined them, and Daphne struggled to shield both, so thankful for what Harry had taught her. Her feet dragged, and every muscle in her body ached, but still she managed to raise that shield over and over. "Angelina," Katie yelled to the other girl. "Electo Caro is fighting Flitwick. You have a clear shot from the side." Angelina launched a cutting curse, and Electo's head parted from her shoulders. Daphne wanted to cheer, but there wasn't time. Spells came flying from all directions, as Daphne cast shield after shield. Then she saw it. Harry and the Dark Lord circling one another. Daphne ran towards him and nearly tripped over something. It was the head of an enormous snake. Longbottom stood over the mangled remains, a blood-stained sword in his hand. Daphne saw Voldemort cast the killing curse and screamed as the green light sped towards Harry. Then, miraculously, the Dark Lord was falling, and Harry stood with arms upraised, clutching two wands. It was a picture that would be in every wizarding house and shop for decades afterward. Harry lay on a pallet in the infirmary since all of the beds were in use. Daphne crouched beside him. "Are you hurt much?" "I'm not hurt at all," Harry managed. "Just tired and hungry and dirty. Here's some dreamless sleep potion." Daphne passed him the vial. "Rest first, you can shower and eat later." "You sound as bossy as Hermione," Harry complained, but his eyes were already closing. Daphne sighed and made her way to the great hall in search of Astoria. She couldn't help flinching at the sight of the rows of bodies. She spotted Katie Bell with her arm around a weeping Angelina. Katie looked at her and indicated a family of redheads huddled near. Fred Weasley didn't make it. He and Angie were dadding a bit and he was on the team. Daphne knew she was talking about the Quidditch team. "Any others? There's about 50 dead, not all students, of course." She nodded. What was there to say? She spotted Astoria at one of the tables and hurried to her side. "I'm going home with the Malfoys," her sister announced. "I told Narcissa what happened to us and she said we all have to leave the school anyway in the next few days and I can come with her." "She might be arrested," Daphne said harshly. "No, she won't. Potter told the Aurors about the way she lied to save him. She's allowed to go home." Daphne felt a pang. Astoria wasn't concerned with where her sister would stay. "What about Tracy?" "I don't know." Astoria didn't seem to care. She got up suddenly and headed for the entrance. Daphne glanced over her shoulder and spotted Narcissa Malfoy waiting there. Astoria never looked back. Daphne began searching the castle, but had to give up. Piles of rubble were everywhere, and floors and walls were splattered with blood. She never found Tracy, though, and opted to return to the hospital wing to check on Potter. Neville Longbottom was there, getting treated for some cuts and bruises. He tried to tell the healers to leave him because others needed help more, but they insisted. Harry still slept soundly, so Daphne hauled over a chair and conjured a cushion. It wasn't very comfortable, but she was so tired she felt she'd be able to sleep on rocks. She soon dozed off. She woke with a stiff neck and noticed Harry's green eyes were open, watching her. Longbottom was gone. Harry dragged himself to his feet. "Let's go." "Where?" "Home." Daphne scrambled up so fast her chair nearly toppled over. "Back to Grimmauld? Where else? I don't have a fancy manor or a country estate or a beach house in the Bahamas. No castle in Spain, no villa in Italy. Number 12 Grimmauld Place, that's what I've got. Sorry if you're disappointed." "No." The smile she gave him was suddenly radiant. "I'm not disappointed." For the next 3 days they did little except eat and sleep. They sent Creature to procure copies of the Daily Prophet, but other than that they isolated from the world. But by the 3rd day, Daphne was ready for a change. It came in a flurry of letters. Harry spoke little about the future, but she noticed he was sending out quite a few letters himself. Finally, she ventured to ask. "I've written to Neville," he explained. "Also McGonagall, Luna, and Kingsley. But not the Weasleys." His face closed. "No, I haven't written to Astoria either." "You should," he began. "No matter what, she is your sister." "I should try to find Tracy too," she admitted. "I looked all over the castle, but nobody had seen her. I could ask some of the Slytherins, but most of them fought for the other side." "Ask Astoria," he suggested. Astoria didn't answer for nearly a week, and when she did, it was just a note. She told Daphne that Tracy was staying with Millicent Bulstrode. Daphne wrote to her, but days went by and no response came. A note that did come, however, was from Katie Bell, who thanked Daphne for her help during the battle. Daphne was touched and pleased and replied immediately. Harry walked into the library where Daphne was curled up reading a book. He was wearing a set of plain black robes, mourning robes. "Fred Weasley's funeral," he said in response to her questioning look. She was instantly alarmed. "Harry, it's dangerous." "They haven't found all the Death Eaters and they might." "It's fine. I can't hide forever and I have to go to Gringotts anyway. Kingsley is coming with me to sort things out with the goblins." She took a shaky breath. "Can I come too? I have to visit the bank as well. Will they mind?" She scrambled into a dark set of robes. She really needed to do some shopping in the alley. She was nervous about showing up at the Burrow, unsure of how they'd react to the presence of a Slytherin, but there was no difficulty. Almost the first person she saw was Katie Bell, who rushed over and gave her a hug, and dragged her off to sit with her and Angelina. Angelina greeted her warmly, but kept watching George Weasley, who was so pale that even his freckles seemed faded. Ginny Weasley ran to Harry and wrapped him in a hug. But Daphne was relieved to see his attention was all for Ron and Hermione. They pulled him over to sit beside them, and Daphne wondered if that was enough for him to overlook the way they'd abandoned him. After the service, they tried to keep Harry with them, but Kingsley Shacklebolt, now Minister of Magic, had much to do and was clearly impatient to get to Gringotts. Daphne finished at Gringotts very quickly. Her family's modest wealth had been taken by Voldemort's corrupt ministry. The goblins would try to recover at least a portion of it. However, her trust vault and Astoria's trust vault were both intact. The Greengrass girls would be able to live very well for some years. Daphne felt relieved. She quickly purchased a few items of clothing in Madame Malkin's and then made her way to the Leaky Cauldron to meet Harry. Most of the shops were boarded up. She wondered how long it would be before Diagon Alley resembled its former self. Even the Leaky Cauldron seemed darker and dingier than ever. "Hello, Daphne." She glanced up to see Hannah Abbott standing beside the table. "What would you like? You mean you'll serve a Slytherin?" Daphne was joking, but Hannah did not return her smile. "Depends on the Slytherin. This Slytherin is always welcome here." Neville Longbottom joined them and kissed Hannah's cheek. "I saw you during the battle," he told Daphne, by way of explanation. "You were one of the few Slytherins who fought on our side." She knew our side meant Harry's side, and she nodded. Hannah's face softened. "Then lunch is on me. This is your pub. It belongs to my grandfather, but he is retiring, so you are looking at the new owner." Hannah was beaming proudly. "I left Hogwarts early and I don't want to return, so you can still take your exams." Neville looked at Daphne. "I wanted to talk to you and Harry about that. I'm going to hire a tutor and take the NEWTS at the Ministry in the fall. I was hoping you'd join us." "That sounds like a great idea." Harry had arrived, and although Daphne could tell he was troubled about something, he managed a smile for Neville and Hannah. "Much as I love Hogwarts, I don't think I can go back, but I pay half the costs of the tutor." Neville demurred, but Daphne could tell he was relieved. "Will you invite Ron and Hermione?" Harry shook his head. "Hermione wants to go back to Hogwarts, and Ron wants to help George out now that Fred is gone." "Sue will want to come," Hannah suggested. She bustled out to the kitchen and returned with a basket of pumpkin pasties. "Tracy might," Daphne said hesitantly. She already knew that Astoria would go back to school but wasn't sure about Tracy. "I'll make arrangements," Neville promised. He was as good as his word. Their tutor would be at Longbottom Manor the following week. By then Daphne had found out about Harry's dealings with Gringotts. "Not too bad, thanks to Kingsley. I have to pay a fine of 10,000 galleons, but I'll help," Daphne said. "My trust fund is intact, so it's fine." Harry held up a hand. "It's sorted. The ministry is paying half. Besides, I have the Black Vault and a share in some other businesses that my family invested in, so money isn't going to be a problem." "I can pay rent," Daphne offered. "Or would you like?" "I mean, I could rent a flat in Diagon Alley." "Why?" Harry was clearly baffled. "Grimmauld Place is huge. I'd like your company." She beamed at him. "I know, I can help you redecorate." "Fair enough." He gave her the smile that never failed to lift her spirits. "Harry, why are you living with Daphne Greengrass?" Hermione Granger stood in her usual stance, head thrust forward and hands on hips. She had changed her mind and come to the tutoring sessions, along with Neville, Hannah, Susan Bones, Luna Lovegood, and Ernie Macmillan. "I'm not living with Daphne Greengrass. I'm just, living with Daphne Greengrass." "But why? You hardly knew her at school." Harry was unfazed. "Because I have plenty of room and I like the company. Besides, we're fixing the place in our spare time." Hermione frowned. "But I think Ginny was planning to help with that." "I don't think that will be necessary. Daphne has lots of ideas." Daphne nodded. If she had her way, Ginny Weasley wouldn't get near the place. The tutor, Ellis Wainwright, rapped on the table to get their attention. He was a tall, spare man of 50 who had been a dueling champion and stood for no nonsense. In addition to the subjects they'd had at Hogwarts, he'd added classes on politics, law, and traditions. Wainwright also made it clear he expected them to do a great deal of study on their own. At the end of the very first session, they all felt they'd covered an amazing amount of material. "That's because everyone here is taking their studies seriously," Hermione announced. "We have no one holding us back." "What did she mean by that?" Daphne asked Harry later. "Well, Ron was the sort to put off his work until the last minute," Harry confessed. "I did too, but I won't anymore. I don't want to be the worst in the class." You're not, Daphne said indignantly. You are the best in the practical, but Granger is the best in the theory. Always has been, he said absently. So you haven't heard from Tracy then? She never answered my first letter, so I wrote again, but she hasn't answered that either. It's hard to give up on your friends, Harry said sadly. Sometimes they give up on you, she replied. Maybe we should both try to make some new friends. Harry took her at her word and began spending more time with Neville. When Daphne found out that Neville was a prodigy in herbology, she insisted he come to Grimmauld Place to give advice about the garden. Tracy was supposed to, but she never did, she explained. Neville was excited. This place has potential. It could be like a hidden garden. Add a table and chairs, and it could be a paradise. I'll bring you some plants, maybe some herbs for cooking. And flowers, nothing poisonous, of course. He was stunned at the inside of the house. It's a hollowed-out shell. It is right now, Harry admitted. But Creature is cleaning and polishing some of the furniture, and we've ordered fabrics for drapes and cushions. So this is going to be your permanent residence? Yes, Harry agreed. I know Sirius was unhappy here, but we plan to fix the place and make it beautiful, Daphne added. It was a fine house once, and we'll make it that way again. A Georgian terraced house right in London. What more could anyone want? You know I'll help, Neville offered. I can't wait to get my hands on that garden. I'm helping Hannah fix up the old leaky, too. Sounds like Neville has a lot on his plate, Harry mentioned after his friend had gone. I envy him in a way. I always like to be busy. You're not busy, Daphne was astonished. Between school and the house, I would think you haven't a minute to spare. He acknowledged that, but said, I guess I meant I should be making future plans. Daphne shrugged. No rush. There is. I got a notice that the Wisengamot will meet on the 1st of the month. Neville and I are going to claim our seats. Her eyes widened. I guess I will too. The only green grasses left are Astoria and me, and I'm the eldest. It's the same for Sue Bones. She's the only surviving member of the Bones family. We'd better ask Neville's grandmother what to expect. Augusta Longbottom proved a fount of information, but warned them not to be too forthcoming until they'd sat on the Wisengamot for several sessions. Give yourself time to learn the alliances, for one thing. We're an alliance, Neville stated firmly. Potter, Longbottom, Bones, and Greengrass, Daphne put in sharply. Don't forget Macmillan, Ernie smiled at her. We will gladly make an alliance with the Greengrasses. In fact, why don't we go to the ministry together? We can grab some lunch afterwards. I thought we'd all go together, Neville said in surprise. Harry scowled at Ernie. And we can all have lunch afterward. He was quiet for much of the evening. Finally, when she was about to bid him good night, he asked, Do you like Ernie? Sure, he's all right, she said absently, studying a magazine on home decor. The author recommended painting everything gray. Daphne frowned, decided she was definitely not a gray sort of person, and tossed the magazine aside. No, I meant, what? I'm not interested in dating him, if that's what you mean. Harry looked happier. No, she sighed and tried to explain. In Slytherin, we were only supposed to date one another. People really weren't expected to branch out. So you only dated Slytherins? No, she shook her head. I didn't date anybody, in fact. She took a deep breath. Tracy and I started a rumor that we were a couple. It was the only way to get other Slytherins to leave us alone. Harry tried to process that. You're not in Slytherin any longer. Daphne couldn't help it. She laughed aloud. No, I'm not. In fact, I could even date a Gryffindor, if one were to ask me, that is. Harry reached for her hand. I'm asking. She smirked at him. Took you long enough. Harry, Hermione pulled him aside. Ginny wants to talk to you. He should have known it was coming. He glanced at Daphne, but she was talking to Susan and paying no attention. I know you wanted to give her space, Hermione said. The Weasleys are grieving over Fred's death, but you are spending more and more time with Daphne. You haven't spent a day apart all summer. I guess it's understandable since you're sharing the house, but you can't leave Ginny hanging like this. I'm not, Harry protested. We broke up before WEI left to find the Horcruxes. I'm not leaving her hanging because we aren't together. I believe Ginny feels the same. Hermione twisted her hands together. Harry, I'm sorry about deserting you the way we did. I tried to come back the very next day but couldn't find you. Will you forgive me? At one time he would have quickly assured her that he would, but now he said, maybe someday. I remember the times you stood by me in school. But when you just left to run after Ron, I felt so alone. It will take time to get over that, and I'm not sure it will ever be the same. Hermione's eyes filled with tears. I understand, but I'm so sorry. She rushed away, and Harry felt awful. Luna intervened. Don't feel bad because you told Hermione the truth, Harry. They ought to feel bad about what they did. At least Hermione apologized, but I bet Ron hasn't. No, he hasn't. He'll just pretend nothing's wrong. But you don't think you will ever feel the same, do you? Maybe not, Luna, but I also think he's hurting over Fred. Maybe I should be more understanding. Give it time, Harry. When things settle down, you'll know what to do. Harry shifted uncomfortably on the Wisengamot chair. So many seats were standing empty, and others filled by the very young and the very old. There were also more women in the ranks than before. Harry glimpsed Narcissa Malfoy. With both her husband and son under house arrest, it was up to her to hold the Malfoy seat. Harry still felt unsure about keeping the Malfoy males out of Azkaban. He'd done so because he owed Narcissa for saving his life. She considered his efforts had repaid the debt. He was pleased about that, since immediately afterwards he had expelled both Narcissa and Draco from the Black family. He knew he couldn't allow the Malfoys access to any black money, now or in the future. The Malfoys were by no means impoverished even so, but Harry knew they'd resent his action anyway. Therefore he tensed when Narcissa, at the conclusion of the session, indicated she wished to speak with them. However, Narcissa approached not Harry, but Daphne. "Miss Greengrass, I would like to request a meeting to formalize a marriage contract between my son Draco and your sister Astoria at a time convenient for you." Daphne was startled and clutched Harry's hand in a reflex action. She found her voice. "Certainly, Mrs. Malfoy. If you will make an appointment at Gringotts, I will attend." Narcissa inclined her head and strode from the chamber. "Don't you have to discuss it with Astoria?" Harry asked curiously. "Oh, I will. But she must be willing, or Narcissa wouldn't have phrased things quite in that way. It's not what I'd hoped for her, but I know she has always liked Draco, so perhaps it will turn out to be a happy marriage. What I must do is negotiate the best possible terms for her." "It seems a bit cold-blooded. It's the way things are done among the old pureblood families," Daphne said quietly. "Both Astoria and I were brought up to believe that marriages were primarily alliances to benefit the family. You don't have to worry about that anymore." Harry felt awkward. He couldn't help wondering if Daphne would like the security of such a contract. She gave him an impish smile. "No, I don't. I'm trusting that my future husband will allow me to make my own choices." Harry took a deep breath, gathered every last ounce of his Gryffindor courage, and said, "You mean after we're married?" Daphne froze. For one tortured moment she felt she couldn't move. Then she found her voice. "Yes, that's what I mean." He whooped, picked her up, and swung her around. She held him close with all her might. It was a terrible proposal. Actually, it wasn't a proposal at all. She'd tease him about that in the future. Right now, she just wanted to enjoy the thought of being his wife. It was sudden, she knew that. She was making a lifetime commitment to a man she hadn't known long, and cheerfully disregarding any legal consequences. But she also knew she'd never be happy without him, and threw her pureblood expectations out the window. They were right together. She sensed that clear down to the soles of her shoes. Then they heard a discreet cough. Why don't we meet you two in the leaky cauldron?" Neville suggested. Behind him, Susan and Ernie stood grinning broadly. Neville, good friend that he was, herded them out. Harry insisted on stopping at Gringotts. "Our friends are waiting," Daphne reminded. "Let them wait. This is more important." They stood before the black vault. "There's some jewelry in the Potter vault," Harry explained, "but nothing suitable for an engagement ring. I thought we'd check the black collection, and if there's nothing you like, we can try the Muggle world." But Daphne knew the ring that was meant for her the instant she saw it. It was an exquisite sapphire with a smaller diamond on each side, set in platinum and obviously goblin-made. When Harry placed it on her finger, it resized to fit perfectly. "I love it," Daphne breathed. "And I love you." Harry studied the inventory. "This says it was the betrothal ring of Doria Black and Charles Potter, so that makes it ideal, both houses together." "It's absolutely gorgeous," Hannah exclaimed afterward, admiring the ring. "When's the wedding?" "We haven't talked about that yet," Harry laughed. "There's a few little things coming up, like our exams, our renovations to the house, our career choices." "You've been offered your choice of careers, haven't you?" Neville inquired. Harry nodded. "McGonagall would like me to teach at Hogwarts, maybe someday, but not yet. There's no adventure in that." "Didn't you want to be an Auror?" Susan asked. "Now that is too much adventure." Everyone laughed. Later that evening, out in the garden at 12 Grimmauld Place, Daphne brought up the question of future careers once more. "You have something in mind, don't you?" "Yes," Harry admitted. "You've seen what Neville has done in the garden here. It's wonderful. I think this garden is the nicest thing about the property." "I wouldn't say that," Harry objected. You've done an incredible job with the place." Daphne was pleased at the tribute, which was well-deserved. Gone was the dim gloom and dust of Grimmauld Place. It was now spotlessly clean. Daphne had chosen a color scheme of ivory and gold, with brilliant accents of scarlet and green. The wood was carefully polished, the lamps shone, new carpets and drapes replaced the old. She had overlooked nothing. The portrait of Mrs. Black was finally gone, along with the elf heads, troll leg, and snake motifs. She had kept the portrait of Phineas Nigellus, though. He actually approved of her, especially when Daphne promised him her first child would be a Black. He even liked the house in its reincarnation. It was so much brighter now. "I may have been a Slytherin," Daphne sniffed, "but that doesn't mean I have to stick with black and green." But the crown jewel was the garden Neville had designed. It was, in a word, enchanting. Harry and Daphne spent as much time out there as possible. "I'm planning to start a company," Harry confessed. He poured them each a glass of wine. "What kind?" Daphne was interested. "A magical landscape company," Harry explained. "That's at first. Later we can branch out into other things. I intend to offer Neville a partnership." "But house elves do the gardening," Daphne objected. "And how many people have house elves?" She nodded slowly. It was true, only the oldest, wealthiest families had house elves, and usually only one. The Greengrasses had only had Petey, and she had died just before Astoria went to Hogwarts. "We can set up magical gardens and ward them so that they require little maintenance, and that little we will provide. I think there's a real need." He was remembering the Weasley garden, invested with gnomes and with only a few straggling plants and an untended orchard. "Harry," Daphne exclaimed, "you can expand on that and set up a plant supply business." "Yes," he said thoughtfully. "And I was thinking about another type of potions shop. Right now people mostly purchase ingredients and brew their own. What if they had access to ready-made potions?" "Yes," Daphne was becoming excited. Neville came to dinner the very next evening, accompanied by Hannah, who was flashing a ruby and gold engagement ring. "Congratulations," Daphne hugged Hannah. "So you got up the nerve to ask her, mate," Harry joked. "No, he didn't," Hannah retorted. "I asked him," Neville reddened. "It's true, once she caught sight of Daphne's ring, well, she had to have one." "Have you set a date yet?" Daphne inquired. "No, have you?" "New Year's Eve," Harry confessed. "We want to start next year as a married couple." He saw Hannah had a thoughtful expression and had a feeling that Neville would not remain unmarried much longer. Both were thrilled to hear about the new company. "I'm surprised. I know you don't have to work at all unless you choose to," Neville said. "Didn't you inherit a considerable fortune from the Potters?" "I did," Harry said. "Along with another fortune from the Blacks. There's a few rental properties as well. It isn't enough to make me the richest man in the country or anything like that, but it's enough so that we never need to worry. Still, I need an occupation, hence a company." "It's a great idea, Harry," Neville admitted. "Gran wants me to follow my father into the Aurors, but we just finished a war and I'm not looking forward to more danger." Hannah nodded. "Let's face it, Harry, you and Neville would both be targeted in the Aurors, and not only by the pureblood supremacists. Every wizard who wanted to build a reputation would try to take down one or both of you. The plan for the partnership comes as a huge relief." "I know exactly what you mean," agreed Daphne. "We need a good name," Harry muttered. "What about Magic Garden?" suggested Hannah. Daphne shook her head. "It's too specific. The company is supposed to branch out to all sorts of things." "I've got it, Silver Stag Company. That can work for everything." Neville's voice cracked with excitement. "But that's my patronus," Harry said slowly. "We're partners, remember?" Neville shrugged. "It's fine. After all, I never managed to produce a corporeal patronus, just a cloud of mist." "A patronus." "You have to teach me," Daphne insisted. "Fine," Harry agreed. "But the name—" "It's a nice name," Hannah declared. "It will make a pretty emblem. We could put it on all the business stationery." "Okay," Harry gave in. "Silver Stag Company it is. We'll have to hire people to run the potions shop," Neville decided. "We'll need good brewers, too." "Who were the best brewers in school?" Daphne asked. "In Slytherin, it was Millicent Bulstrode and Draco Malfoy." Draco would never want to work for someone else, but Millicent might need the money. "The Ravenclaw Sully was excellent," Neville put in. "So was Penelope Clearwater, remember her?" "Yeah, she used to date Percy Weasley," said Harry. "Let's not hold that against her," Daphne quipped. Everyone laughed. Among his commercial Potter holdings, Harry found a vacant shop in Diagon Alley. The problem was that it was located roughly opposite Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. He thought for a minute, then shrugged. He was still on excellent terms with George. and Ron would just have to deal with it. Sue Lee had decided to train for a healer, but she recommended her friend Michael Corner in her stead. Penelope and Millicent both agreed, and they decided they'd be able to open for business by September. The shop was cleaned, painted leaf green and wood brown, and a silver stag sign was mounted above with prepared potions inscribed. They installed a sign in the window that read, "Too busy to brew." Buy your potions already prepared by the experts at Silver Stag. Most wizards aren't great at brewing anyway, Daphne shrugged. But we don't want to imply that. We want to suggest that they are simply too busy. The shop proved profitable almost at once. The landscaping got off to a slow start, but once the first garden was featured in the Quibbler, commissions began rolling in almost faster than Harry and Neville could keep up with them. "Stop!" Daphne insisted. "Don't try to take on more than you can handle. Make sure you leave enough time for fun. Don't forget we have a wedding to plan that will require lots of shopping." "That's fun," Harry questioned. "Of course it is. Where do you want to get married?" "In our garden, of course. We can cast some warming charms and it will be fine. Then we'll place the food and drink in the dining room and people can mingle through the rest of the house." "Wait, how many people are we talking about?" Daphne considered. "Not too many. I'm in favor of keeping it small, aren't you?" "Most definitely," Harry kept nodding. "Absolutely, yes, small is good, very small is better." She gave him an affectionate smile. "Don't worry, but we should make our announcement soon and let our closest friends know to save the date." The Fidelius charm no longer concealed 12 Grimmauld Place. It now remained, newly refurbished, as a shining example of Georgian beauty. It was still carefully warded to keep out all harm, but now stood proudly in the center of the dingy square. Harry and Daphne smiled at one another, happy in the knowledge that the house they had restored would welcome the friends they wanted on hand to celebrate their union. It did not take Narcissa Malfoy long to arrange for the meeting at Gringotts. "Are you sure you want me to come?" Harry was doubtful. "Narcissa requested you come." Daphne was in mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, she knew she'd be glad of Harry's support. But on the other hand, she was suspicious about Narcissa's reason for the invitation. In the conference room at Gringotts, the Malfoys were already gathered when Harry and Daphne arrived. Since both Lucius and Draco were still under house arrest, Aura Proudfoot was stationed nearby. Draco was smoldering, but Astoria looked nervous. Narcissa spoke first. "We are here to formulate the marriage contract between Astoria," she gave her a wintry smile, "and Draco. What dowry is House Greengrass prepared to offer?" So that was it. Daphne returned the smile. "As you know, the ministry confiscated the Greengrass main vault. We have applied for restitution, and when it occurs, Astoria will receive an equal share. Otherwise, her trust vault is intact, and that must suffice." "Her trust vault is rather paltry," Draco sneered. "That must suffice," Daphne repeated. She dropped one hand out of sight to rest it lightly on Harry's. She knew her betrothed's generosity and hoped he would remain silent. "But Daphne," Astoria piped up, "surely you have access to more funds now that you are engaged." "Everyone knows Potter is worth a fortune." "I have the same as you," Daphne insisted. "Fortunately, Harry is not troubled by thoughts of my dowry." "No, now that he's helped himself to the Black Vault," Draco snarled. Daphne felt Harry stiffen. She tightened her grip and he calmed. "We are not here to discuss the Black Wealth, but to arrange a marriage contract between the House of Malfoy and House Greengrass. I have stated what dowry my sister may expect. The only other clause I would like to include is one where either party may void the contract without any penalty. Simple enough." Narcissa shook her head. "A bit too simple, I'm afraid. I realize the Greengrass fortune is gone, at least for now, and you don't wish to request any funds from your fiancé. But may I suggest an alternative?" "Of course you may suggest," Daphne said, her tone making it clear she felt no obligation to go along with the suggestion. "Your betrothed has the power to reinstate Draco into the Black family, along with his future wife and their descendants. I do not ask it for myself, but I must insist on this concession for them." So that was the scheme. Impossible. Daphne did not hesitate. "My fiancé did not make this decision lightly. It is in accordance with the wishes of his late godfather, Sirius Black. Harry has every intention of reviving the reputation and prestige of the Black family." "Does Potter need you to talk for him?" Draco sniped. "I am not," Daphne said clearly. "I am telling you what provisions in the marriage contract are acceptable. That one is not." Astoria exploded. "I hate you, Daphne. You're selfish and mean, and you don't want me to be happy." "It's It's because I do want you to be happy that I'm here at all, Daphne said. That went well, Harry remarked as they strolled towards 12 Grimmauld Place. They knew about the money, Daphne said grimly. They are thinking ahead, plotting to get control of the Black Fortune. She turned and gave him a quick kiss. Thank you, Harry. For what? Letting me handle it. He smirked at her. You thought I'd bumble my way in and hand it all to Draco, hum? Well, I'd hope you wouldn't do that. But you trusted me to handle it, and I hope I made it clear that he either marries Astoria for what she's got, or releases her from the engagement. No fear of that. He would find it hard to discover another pureblood bride with no ties to the Death Eaters. Won't you mind if she never comes to our wedding? Daphne considered that for a long moment. I would like her too, but I'm not expecting it. Astoria can hold a grudge, and so can the Malfoys. Suddenly she clutched his arm. Harry, look, that pub. The Stag and Rose, Harry read. It's right in our own neighborhood. Grimmauld Place isn't the best neighborhood, he pointed out. But this looks quite nice. Want to go in? It was a small and cozy local, not tarted up with modern gimmickry but aged in the most mellow way. He ordered a pint, and she opted for a glass of white wine. The food looked tasty, so they decided to have an early dinner. Hope we don't upset the elves, Daphne murmured. We ought to make it a point of eating out at least once a week, so they catch a break, Harry suggested. The pub was run by a young couple named Tom and Gemma, and many of the regulars were their friends, but they cheerfully welcomed Harry and Daphne. They lingered over their drinks and finally left with warm wishes that they would come again. Come for the quiz on Tuesdays, Tom suggested. It's fun. A short walk brought them home again. You know, Harry said thoughtfully, what if we could release a series of games? Games? Like the pub quizzes, but aimed at wizards. I'm thinking we could come up with something like the Muggles have, but charmed to work around magic. She laughed. You have the best ideas. This is my dress, Daphne declared, indicating the one she had selected. It's beautiful, Hermione approved. But long sleeves, I thought you'd want strapless. No, it's a winter wedding. I love this dress. I wish I could find one that suits me so well, Hannah complained. Your dress is perfect. Well, you have more time, Daphne pointed out. Your wedding will be in May. What color would you like to wear, Hermione? Anything will be fine. I want to say, I'm so pleased you asked me to be your maid of honor. The two girls exchanged smiles, remembering how they'd bonded over a certain project they'd worked on together. Daphne hated the Dursleys with the burning heat of 1,000 suns, but she knew Harry wouldn't want her to actually murder them. She regretfully abandoned some of her more violent ideas, even though she believed child abusers deserved to be crucio quote ed until their brains exploded. Wait, child abusers. Daphne felt inspiration strike and darted off to find Hermione. She reminded Hermione of the charm used to expose the traitor in the DA during 5th year. The girls gleefully adapted it for the Dursleys. Child abuser erupted right across their faces. No matter how much makeup Petunia caked on, sooner or later the words became visible. Vernon Dursley spent a fortune on Muggle dermatologists, who confessed themselves baffled and eyed him suspiciously. They'd taken to cowering in the house, unwilling to be seen, waiting for the spell to wear off. Daphne and Hermione vowed they'd be waiting a long time. Hermione was still talking about the wedding. I thought maybe you would ask Tracy. She hasn't answered any of my letters, although I write every week, said Daphne sadly. Millicent Bulstrode says she is fine and studying for NEWTS, but I wish she'd get in touch. Neville is thrilled to be Harry's best man, Hannah told them. Of course he asked Harry, I knew he would, but he never expected Harry to ask him. They are closer now than Harry and Ron ever were, Hermione admitted sadly. I'm just so relieved that Harry forgave me for leaving him in the forest that time. Harry has a forgiving nature. Lucky for me, Hermione grimaced. Are you sure you only want one attendant, Daphne? We want to keep it simple, Daphne nodded. It was true, but she couldn't face having more bridesmaids if her oldest friend wasn't among them. There'd been a time when Tracy was her only friend, and Daphne still missed her sorely. I don't, Hannah declared. I'm having Susan for my maid of honor and Hermione, Daphne, and Luna for bridesmaids. I want a huge wedding. Luckily, Neville Quotes Gran is on board with that. I want everyone in shades of yellow, all white flowers, though. Daphne didn't think that sounded attractive, but if it made Hannah happy, she would gladly wear yellow. Why don't you just go see her? Hermione was still thinking about Tracy. I did once, but she wouldn't come to the door. But Daphne was thinking of trying again. Millicent Bulstrode lived in a modest house in Bromley. Daphne decided to go there while Millicent was at work. She crossed her fingers that Tracy would answer the door. She did, but her scowl warned Daphne that she was not welcome. "Well, what is it?" "I want you to be my bridesmaid," she blurted. "Please, Tracy. I don't want to go to your wedding, let alone participate in it." "But why? What have I done?" Tracy's eyes were unforgiving. "You came out unscathed." "I was just lucky." Daphne thought back to the battle, shielding Katie and Angelina while the Gryffindors cast. "My shield was my strongest spell, thanks to Harry's coaching. Luckily, it was good enough to protect the other girls while they fought the Death Eaters." "I wasn't talking about the battle." Tracy sounded exasperated. "I was talking about the attack on my house." Daphne blinked. "But I tried my best to fight back. I used stunners and switched to bone breakers when the stunners weren't enough. I fought as long and as hard as I could." Tracy stared at her feet. "When I suggested we make a run for it through the back way, you wouldn't." "I figured it was guarded. I told you that." "There it is," Tracy snapped. "I told you so." "I've been waiting to hear that ever since it happened." "I didn't mean to say that," Daphne said softly. "Truly I didn't. At least you took a chance while I stayed put and prepared to die." "You kept fighting," Tracy whispered. "You didn't run like me." "That was because Astoria couldn't run," Daphne confessed. "If she'd had the stamina, I might have figured running was worth a try. As it was, I expected to die, but hoped I could at least take one of the Death Eaters with me." "Potter saved us all," Tracy nodded. "Is that why you're going to marry him? Because you're grateful? Because he makes you feel safe?" Daphne was honestly surprised by that. "No," she said slowly. "I figured that live or die, I'd rather face whatever comes together. I think maybe when he faced Voldemort, he expected to die too." Tracy considered. "I'm glad he didn't." Daphne grinned at her. "Me too." Things were easier after that. Tracy still didn't desire to be a bridesmaid, but she at least promised to come to the wedding. "All right if I bring Millie." "Of course, she's invited anyway. Everyone who works for Silver Stag is invited." Tracy's jaw dropped. "You mean that's Potter's company? His and Neville Longbottom quotes." "Millie never mentioned that." Tracy shook her head. "Maybe she thought I wouldn't care. I was rubbish at potions. The only thing I had any talent for was herbology." Daphne, about to take her leave, stopped abruptly. "If you find yourself in need of a job, there's a magical landscaping branch of the company. I know they are in dire need of help. Why not think it over?" "What about?" Tracy's hand lifted to her scawed cheek. "It's honestly not that bad, and there's a type of muggle makeup that will help conceal scars." "I guess it could be worse. At least Greyback wasn't transformed, or I'd be a werewolf. Nothing is worse than that." "Do you think we should have an arch in the garden?" Daphne asked anxiously. "No." Hermione remembered the Veil of Death and knew it would hold horrible memories for Harry. "Just some lights. That garden is perfect as it is." "Lanterns," Daphne nodded. "A buffet in the dining room." "I thought you'd leave Christmas decorations up." "I decided I wanted something special for New Year's Eve," Daphne smiled. "I hope I didn't put you off when I said I'd like to wear blue." Hermione sounded guilty. Daphne laughed. "Not at all. It helped me choose the colors. Decorations will be ice blue, silver, and berry." Now everything was in place. Hermione, clutching her colorful bouquet, took her place beside Neville at the altar. And Daphne walked toward Harry. I've never been happier, she thought. Neither she nor Harry had any family present. No matter, they had plenty of friends, they would make their own family. She caught glimpses as she made her way to Harry. Katie, Belle, Angelina, Sue, Luna, Tracy. Millicent had turned up as well and congratulated them afterwards. There was a full complement of Weasleys, with Fred alone absent. Daphne was pleased about that. She knew Harry still loved them, even though Ginny Weasley wore a sulky expression throughout and kept glowering at Daphne. Then it was all over. They were among their guests, who were all toasting the newlyweds. Winky and Creature had outdone themselves. The table fairly groaned under the amount of food, and a red velvet wedding cake towered in the center. Finally, they were alone in 12 Grimmauld Place. In the distance they could hear fireworks, but here they were together in the velvet darkness. She could see his green gaze. That was all she could see. And then he kissed her. She returned his kiss, and so began their married life together. For their honeymoon, they opted to visit New York City. "It seems silly to visit another city when we live in one," Daphne laughed. "But I've always wanted to see New York." So they went sightseeing, shopping, to a Broadway play. They strolled through Central Park and roamed the museums. They tried a dozen different restaurants, went to Chinatown, Chelsea Market, and Greenwich Village. Finally, it was over. They hated to leave but agreed they'd return sometime. They went home to disaster. Daphne cast a resentful glance at the ministry letter. The Malfoys would pay for trying to crush her joy, she vowed. "How can they charge us with line theft? The Malfoys can't expect to get away with that." Harry fumed. They don't, Daphne said grimly. It's just the first step. Ask for something huge so they may wring out some concessions. They probably think they can force you to reinstate Draco in the Black family. Not happening, Harry snorted. Then, Daphne continued, there are the Wisengamot votes. Lucius Malfoy has been casting the Black vote while Sirius was in prison. Since Astoria just married Draco, he thinks he can hold the Greengrass vote as well. We'll stop him at the next session, Harry decided. In fact, I might have an idea about that. What about Gringotts? What do they want? Harry hesitated. Just a reminder that since I've claimed my inheritances, I will require an heir for Black, Potter, and Peverell. Daphne drew in a breath. And for Greengrass, unless we let Astoria and the Malfoys have it. Yes. Did they suggest you take other wives to separate the lines? Daphne was amazed. She sounded so calm while raging inside. They have, Harry admitted, but they also said that we have the option of fulfilling our obligations by proving sufficient heirs, Daphne concluded. What do you want to do, Harry? I don't want anyone but you, he said at once. She smiled. Good, because I won't share you. You're mine. I am always, he nodded. If that means we forget about the lines. What? She shrieked. Never, we'll just have to have plenty of bobbies. I always wanted at least 3, so what's 1 or 2 more? It will be fine, and we don't give those Malfoys an inch. This isn't necessary, Daphne. Narcissa looked her firmly in the eye. By supporting your husband in his stubbornness, you are causing your sister and Draco needless distress. You are the one persisting in this foolish hearing, Mrs. Malfoy. On your own head be it, replied Narcissa, leading the way into the conference room. All of the Malfoys took their seats, Astoria shooting a poisonous glare at her sister. Almeria Hastings, head of the Department of Magical Heraldry, entered, accompanied by her assistant Melchior Vestry. They sat at the head of the table. Daphne and Harry faced the Malfoys on the other side. Vestry cleared his throat. We are assembled to consider a change of line theft against the Malfoy family, perpetrated by Harry Potterblack and his wife, the former Daphne Greengrass. Is that correct? It is. Draco rose to his feet. For no reason, Potter. Potterblack, corrected Harry. Draco looked murderous. Potterblack expelled me from the Black family and included all of my descendants in the ban. Is this true? Miss Hastings looked to Harry. It is, he responded. Both she and Vestry looked surprised at the admission. For what reason? Vestry inquired. Malfoy carries the dark mark. It was clear Draco had prepared for this. I took the mark before I came of age in an effort to protect my family. That was only one reason. Another was the fact that Lucius Malfoy took it upon himself to cast the Black vote, even though he did not have permission from the then head of House Sirius Black. Lucius took it upon himself to speak. Sirius Black was in Azkaban. True, Harry nodded, but he was never convicted and had the right to name his own proxy. You circumvented the law on this matter. We are deciding on my account, not on my father's. Draco snarled. Yes, Daphne stepped in. So we wish to bring a counterclaim against you for line theft. You have informed the Wisengamot that you will be casting the Greengrass vote on behalf of Astoria. But Astoria, as the younger daughter, does not inherit. That is my birthright. Potter already holds 2 votes, Draco objected. You mean like your father did with the Black vote? Harry forbore to mention that he held 3, counting the Peverell vote. Of course, Daphne smirked. I can always disown Astoria from the Greengrass family. Her sister paled, and Draco was silenced. Surely it isn't necessary to go to that extreme. Narcissa decided to intervene. We are actually concerned for you, Daphne. To provide heirs for so many lines could prove difficult. I intend to do precisely that, Daphne insisted. So that's that, Harry said in satisfaction. Not really, Harry, Daphne objected. The Malfoys won't give up that easily. They'll be watching like hawks to see if we have enough children. Maybe we should get started, Harry joked, but Daphne was serious. Do you want a Potter heir first or Black? Because our second child, by tradition, ought to be the Greengrass heir. Black, Harry said at once. I don't think I can ever express how much Sirius meant to me. He was the one person I knew cared for me. I loved the memory of my parents, but I didn't know them. Daphne hugged him. We'll name our first child after him, Harry. I promise. He grinned at her. I'll hold you to that. Silver Stag Company was raking in profits. Tracy was now managing the landscaping business, and Daphne, who handled much of the financial end, suggested setting up a mail-order service for the potions. Meanwhile, Harry had charmed a circular device to provide multiple games for wizards. He decided to speak to George Weasley about selling the invention in Weasley's Wizard Wheezes once it reopened. since Harry still retained a share in the business. He'd been putting it off, unwilling to encounter Ron. His feelings about his former friend were complicated. He resented the way Ron had abandoned him when the going got tough. At the same time, he remembered how Ron had welcomed him to his home, had shared his family with him, had made him laugh and have fun after a childhood filled with misery and deprivation. Finally, the day dawned when George and Ron reappeared in Diagon Alley and moved back into the upstairs flat. Outside, a bright orange banner read, "Grand reopening coming soon." Harry could see movement inside and determined to head over there and talk to the Weasley brothers. The first person he encountered was Angelina Johnson. "Harry," she gave him a bone-crushing hug. "It's so good to see you." "You too, Angie. How has George been?" She sobered at once. "Not wonderful, but a bit better than he was. That's one reason I'm here helping, to try to keep him from sinking into despair. But I know he'll want to see you, Harry. Go on back, he's doing inventory." Harry had seen George twice since the wedding, and each time left him wondering if the vibrant, joyous part of George had died along with Fred. Today, however, he was relieved to see that George was indeed looking better, if more subdued than he had been in the past. "Hello, Harry. I'm glad you stopped by. I need to talk to you about the business. I may be slow with your share." Harry held up his hands. "Stop right there. You know I gave you the money with no strings attached." George took on a stubborn expression. "You believed in us when no one else did. As long as there is a shop, you get a fair share. You're a partner." "Then, as a partner, I get a say," Harry insisted. "First things first, I'm putting in another investment of 10,000 galleons. George opened his mouth to protest, but Harry cut him off. "You'll need it to remodel and restock, so I don't want to hear any more about it. Also, I have the prototype for a new product I think will go over well." George's dulled eyes took on a spark of excitement at the game device. "How many games are there?" 20, Harry grinned. "Magical versions of Muggle games including gobstones and chess. I originally planned for more, but then I thought we could market an advanced version later, if it sells, that is." "Oh, it'll sell," George promised. "I'd like one myself." "One what?" Ron walked in the room, saw Harry, and stopped dead. "Harry." "Hello, Ron." Harry kept his voice steady. Ron took a deep breath. "Harry, can we talk?" Harry hesitated, then nodded. Try as he might, he couldn't just forget about the long years of friendship, so he followed Ron upstairs to the flat. When they were barely through the door, Ron whipped around. "Look, I know I was a right git. I know I let you down, and what's worse, I took Hermione along with me, even though she didn't want to leave. It really hit me at your wedding when Neville was up there with you instead of me. Anyway, I'm sorry." He took a deep breath. "That's all." That's all he said, but his blue eyes were pleading. Harry had been furious with Ron, but watching him now, he felt his anger subside. "I accept your apology," he managed. "But we can't just go back the way we were. It hurt when you and Hermione ducked out. Hermione's been trying to make up for it ever since. Can I make up for it, please, Harry? You were the best friend I ever had." "It'll take time," Harry said quietly. Ron swallowed hard. "Right, I know that." He brightened. "Can we start with ice cream?" "I'm buying." Harry had to laugh. One thing for certain, Ron's appetite never failed him. Still, delving into a chocolate fudge sundae, Harry felt optimistic that their friendship hadn't been damaged beyond all repair. He knew beyond a doubt that his old friend was truly repentant. After all, for once Ron had actually insisted on paying. "Ready?" "Almost," Daphne answered, fumbling for her favorite pair of earrings. "I'm so glad Hannah changed her mind about having all the bridesmaids in yellow." "Why, don't you like yellow?" Harry was puzzled. "I think it's a difficult color," Daphne admitted. "It looks better on brunettes, in my opinion. Luckily, Hannah decided to go with pale green, which looks great on blondes." Harry pulled her into his arms and gave her a kiss. "They have a beautiful day, too." Daphne surveyed the grounds of Longbottom Hall with great satisfaction. It was a memorable wedding, yet Harry felt regretful that Neville's parents would not be attending. True to her word, Hannah had a large wedding party. Harry took his place in line, followed by Justin Finch-Fletchley, Ernie Macmillan, and Ron. Harry was paired with Susan Bones, while Justin was paired with Daphne. Ernie walked with Hermione and Ron with Megan Jones. Later, when it was all over and the newlyweds had gone off to Skye and Harry and Justin had traded partners, Daphne invited everyone to 12 Grimmauld Place for an after-party. "Great," Justin spoke up. "Is it okay if I bring Mandy Brocklehurst? We're dadding now." Harry was surprised. He'd believed Justin and Susan were dadding, but he agreed at once. "Harry," Susan began, "is it all right if I bring—" "Of course," Harry interrupted. He'd spotted George with Angelina and wanted to catch them before they left. After they agreed to come, he'd bumped into Lee Jordan and Demelza Robbins and extended the invitation to them. He was on his way out when he saw Oliver Wood and insisted he come along. Harry rejoined Daphne, and they hurried home before their guests arrived. I saw Tracy and Millicent and asked them. They were sitting with Michael Corner and his date, so I included them as well, Daphne said cheerfully. Harry felt a flicker of alarm. I thought it would only be about a dozen people. Hope we have enough food. There will be plenty, Daphne laughed. We'll have 15 or 16 tops. 47 people showed up. As usual, everyone gravitated to the garden. Wow, Susan was wide-eyed as she took in every inch. So Neville designed this. I thought it was stunning during your wedding, but it looks even better now. I'm surprised he and Hannah didn't marry here. Well, Hannah wanted a big wedding, Harry explained. Daphne and I didn't. I've never seen a lovelier garden. Katie Bell sounded odd. She walked over and took Susan's hand. This is the perfect place for someone to marry. Provided they want a small, intimate wedding, Penelope Clearwater cautioned. She glanced up at Oliver Wood. I would, but some people might not. George laughed. The Weasleys don't do small or intimate. We're all expected to get married at the Burrow with lots of food, Quidditch, and dancing, Fleur sighed. Ours started out that way until the Death Eaters attacked. Bill put an arm around her. Way to cast a damper, love, he said gently. The solemn moment passed when George pulled Angelina to her feet. That won't happen at the next Weasley wedding. I've asked Angelina to marry me, and she said yes. Ernie was quick to propose a toast to the engaged couple. Angelina proudly displayed a heart-shaped ruby ring. And the rest of the evening was one of unbridled hilarity as everyone came up with more and more outrageous ways to commemorate the event. As people began to take their leave, Oliver proposed a pickup Quidditch game the next morning in a wizarding park nearby. Everyone agreed enthusiastically, and Daphne suggested a picnic lunch for afterwards. Wonder how many will turn out for that. Harry pondered once they were alone in their bedroom. Maybe around a dozen. Daphne looked to Harry, and they both collapsed with laughter. But that party would turn out to have a huge impact on their lives. Are you sure? Harry whispered, afraid it might not be true. Daphne touched his hand. Pretty sure. I have to see a healer tomorrow. I'm coming with you, Harry declared. If it's really true, we need to celebrate. Please, not another party, she laughed. It was fun, of course, but we can celebrate at our pub, Harry said. The best champagne in the world won't be good enough. No alcohol, Daphne said sternly. I suppose I could have sparkling grape juice or something. So the following evening found them in their neighborhood pub, telling their happy news to Tom and Gemma. I can't wait to tell all our friends, Daphne said as they walked home. But Harry woke the next morning to an empty bed. Daphne, she was kneeling on the floor by the toilet. Pale and disheveled though she was, she managed a smile for him. It's okay, Harry, just morning sickness. I've heard it's always worse for the first child. Only slightly reassured, he dressed and went down to fetch a tray for his wife. Unfortunately, the sight of it brought about more retching. By the third day, he was becoming alarmed. Is morning sickness supposed to last all day long, and most of the night? I'm certain I'll be over it soon, she managed. He took his worries to Hermione. She says it's only to be expected, but she isn't eating, and when she does, it comes back up. Make her see a healer, Harry. She's right about morning sickness being natural, but this seems extreme. He practically dragged Daphne to St. Mungo's, but was thankful that he did. Hyperemesis gravidarum, he said softly. Hermione bit her lip. Women usually recover from that, not to say you shouldn't take it seriously, but don't panic, Harry. But St. Mungo's is keeping her overnight, Harry complained. They made me leave once visiting hours were over. It's for the best. Hermione sounded firm. She needs rest, and she needs to keep from getting dehydrated. Yeah, mate. Ron nodded. Why not try to eat something? Hannah's been hovering for 20 minutes. Harry stared at his untouched sandwich. Daphne isn't eating at all. What does her healer say? Neville inquired. Basically, all they can do is keep her hydrated. Potions are dangerous in her condition. He said something else that has me worried. He said many pureblood girls have trouble conceiving, and those that do often can't manage more than one child. They are delicate, Neville cautioned. But what about Ron's mother? Hermione frowned. A rare exception, Neville said. Yeah, Dad said they were surprised to have so many kids, Ron put in. You may have to stop at one, Harry. Neville's tone was gentle. I know that isn't what you want. What matters is Daphne, insisted Harry. He repeated that to healer Carmichael later that evening. The man looked uneasy. Well, we'll have to see what happens. Is she able to return home? Harry pleaded. I'd prefer she remain here a bit longer, perhaps in a week. Daphne longed to go home to 12 Grimmauld Place. Finally, healer Carmichael consented, but she is to rest as much as possible. Winky was deputized to keep constant watch over her mistress. Harry and Creature hovered. Hermione volunteered to come and stay for the duration. She looks so I think she's lost a full stone, Harry fretted. Try not to worry, Hermione advised, but Harry couldn't help it. Daphne looked so pale and sick that he fretted constantly. Then came George's wedding to Angelina, but Daphne wasn't well enough to attend. You must go, Harry, Daphne insisted. You're a member of the wedding party, I will be fine. But Hermione has to go too. I don't want to leave you alone just with the elves. Early on the day, however, Tracy showed up. I'm staying. Harry, no need to worry. Tracy placed a comforting hand on his arm. I'll see to it Daphne is all right. It was a borough wedding, raucous, filled with food and noisy. Harry was partnered with Katie Bell and confessed his fears about his wife to his old teammate. Isn't it getting better, Harry, at all? I don't think it is. Harry was miserable and it showed. But Katie, you said you had something to talk to me about. Katie hesitated. Look, Harry, I did mean to ask you a favor, but with Daphne feeling so sick, maybe it's not the best time. Ask anyway. Harry managed a smile for her. We're such old friends, why not? Susan Bones and I are going to bond. Katie tilted her chin almost in defiance. That's great, Katie. Harry hugged her. You're two of my favorite people and I think you're perfect for one another. His friend relaxed. Thank you, Harry. It won't be a big wedding. Susan's an orphan and I have no close family left. So is it okay if we marry in your garden? There won't be more than 20 people and you won't need to provide food or drinks or… Katie, Harry interrupted her. It's fine. Oh, thanks. You know, Susan's family home was burned during the war and we've been living in a small flat above the Cauldron shop in Diagon Alley. So we truly appreciate this. We couldn't think of a nice alternative. It was a tiny but very happy wedding. Harry insisted on carrying Daphne out to their garden and felt a spike of terror at how light she was becoming. He tried to put his fears aside and rejoice with his friends, but he found it hard. I can't believe Susan and Katie insisted on supplying the food, Daphne fretted afterward. We could easily manage refreshments for a few people. I offered, Harry told her, but they wouldn't hear of it. At least they let Winky make the wedding cake. It was a beautiful wedding, Daphne sighed. At sundown in the garden it reminded me of ours. But now you ought to lie down. Tracy appeared and took charge. Daphne grimaced but obeyed. Harry let the remaining guests out, then headed to the kitchen to make some tea for Daphne. But when he went to check, he found she was already fast asleep. This pregnancy is very hard on her. Tracy was standing beside him. I know. Harry couldn't help but feel guilty. Harry, could I speak to you a moment? Yes, of course. Harry ushered Tracy into the study. She sat down uneasily. Harry, Daphne told me about the number of heirs you need for the family lines that both she and you must carry on. But Harry, I don't believe Daphne can manage that many pregnancies. If that's the case, we'll deal with it, Harry said firmly. Daphne is the one that matters. Tracy shook her head. You know what Daphne is like. She'll insist on trying even if it kills her. But what can I do? If I tell her I don't want more children, she'll know you are lying, Tracy said flatly. Then what? You can insist on taking another wife. That's what Daphne wants. Hermione sounded doubtful. What she said was that she's come to think it might not be a bad idea, Harry admitted. I don't understand it. She was always adamant about not sharing, but now she seems to be wavering. But she doesn't know she'd find another pregnancy difficult, Hermione objected. She's very thin, Harry objected. She's lost so much weight and she looks so fragile. Neville wandered over from the bar and brought their drinks. It's common among purebloods, Harry, when there are several family lines. You need several heirs, so. I don't care about that. If the lines die out, they die out. I only care about my wife's health, and right now her health looks bad. You need at least 3 heirs, right? Ron calculated. Potter, Black, Peveril, and Greengrass, Harry supplied. Astoria could supply the Greengrass heir, but Daphne is unwilling to hand the Wisengamot seat to her sister. Which would mean handing it to Lucius Malfoy, Hermione grimaced. Exactly. Harry's shoulders slumped. It's not that I care so much about perpetuating the family lines, it's handing over the votes. Should have sent the Malfoys to Azkaban, Ron grunted. Harry sighed. No, I shouldn't. I owed Narcissa a life debt, and that is what she required, pardons for her family. Never mind, Harry, Hermione consoled him. You had no choice. We just have to figure out what to do about the current problem. Harry brightened. Why not name Teddy Lupin the Black Heir? Tonks was a black on her mother's side, so. Hermione shook her head sadly. Not possible, Harry. As the child of a werewolf, Teddy cannot inherit the headship of any noble house. It's been the law for centuries. What? Harry was outraged. Then we have to change the law. Even if, by some miracle, you managed it, Hermione cautioned, it wouldn't be retroactive. Something else forbidden by the Wisengamot. They are so afraid of introducing the lycanthropy strain into the bloodlines. I know Teddy isn't a werewolf, but he does have certain of the attributes, so the taint may show up in his descendants. That's probably the reason Remus hesitated to marry Tonks and was so upset about the pregnancy. But Andromeda was okay with it, Harry objected. How do we know that? Ron gulped and nodded. My mother encouraged Remus to propose to Tonks, but... Well, it would have been a different story if he'd wanted to marry Ginny. We'll have to think of some other way. Hermione's eyes held a calculating expression. Well, I don't see what is so awful. Ron looked puzzled. Why not have a few other wives? You could have your pick. Harry held tight to his patience. That might seem the easiest solution, but I think it would damage my marriage. Daphne could feel I was cheating, even if she says she'd accept it. And I would feel like it's cheating. Things like that. Well, they chip away at the foundations of a marriage. Besides, I know I couldn't care for anyone else as much as I do Daphne. He told Daphne that, later in the evening when he returned to 12 Grimmauld Place. Her eyes softened, and she hugged him, but then she took on a look of resolution. Harry, I did something that may have been ill-advised before I became pregnant. Huh, what did you do? You know how sometimes I argue with Phineas Nigellus, Well, I promised him my firstborn will be the Black Heir, Harry whistled. I guess you wouldn't want to go back on your promise. I can't, Daphne sounded desperate. I know now how foolish it was, but I gave him a witch's oath. She burst into tears. Harry put his arms around her. Hey, it's okay, so we will have the heir to the Blacks. But what about the Potters? You are the only one left, and the Greengrass. Stop, he kissed her tenderly. Family legacies. Well, they do matter, but they mean less to me than our own family. And that consists of you, me, and our baby. The rest we can get by without. We will lose the votes for the Wisengamot. Hermione has made so many plans. We will accomplish our goals eventually, Harry said firmly. It may take a little longer, that's all. Now what do you fancy for dinner? Ron and Hermione flew in early next morning. Sorry, mate. Ron handed Harry a copy of the Daily Prophet. Seems we forgot privacy charms at the Leaky. Damn Rita Skeeter. Harry stared at the headline, which read, Chosen one to take another wife. Hermione sighed. Be prepared, Harry. You're about to get inundated with a slew of marriage contracts. All we need right now. Daphne already feels she is letting me down, no matter how much I tell her I don't mind about the heir business. I'm happy with one child. The public won't accept that, mate. They'll say you are selfish or Daphne is, letting the lines die out. Ron was upset. Harry set his jaw. I don't care about that. Daphne is the one I care about. One child is what we'll have, and if the wizarding world can't accept that, it's not that easy for her, Harry. Hermione shook her head. Are you sure that others aren't pressuring her about this? Who? She doesn't even leave the house now that her due date is so close. Harry was frowning in thought. She only sees a few friends who visit regularly, and none of them would do that. Are you certain, mate? Ron asked. Face it, you'd be quite a catch. Harry just laughed. Then the owls began to arrive. What's all this? Neville stared at the pile of parchment Harry dumped in their joint office overlooking Diagon Alley. They had decided they needed a central location for the Silver Stag Company, separate from the apothecary shop, where they could expand their business easily. They'd found a small store nearby, where they sold Neville's ornamental plants and flowers on the ground floor. On the floor above, they set up their office. Megan Jones, a Hufflepuff with a knack for herbology, was hired to manage the shop, and it proved quite successful. More business plans. Neville ventured a guess. Marriage proposals, Harry grimaced, and other proposals. Other, Harry shrugged. Apparently there are witches who don't demand marriage but are willing to bear my children. That's just sad. Hermione appeared in the doorway. I mean, it's touching in a way. They are so grateful for what you did they are happy to do that, but... No, Harry said firmly. No, Neville agreed, but Hermione thought he should consider it. Lots of people have children by means of surrogates, Harry. It's quite common in the Muggle world. Daphne wouldn't agree. Harry felt quite certain. Sure, Neville asked. I think she'd be happier doing something like that than sharing you with another wife. I think so too, Hermione nodded. Harry wavered. Let me talk to Daphne, suggested Hermione. I promise I won't nag or push, but maybe I can get a feel for what will make her happiest. Hermione made her way upstairs to the library at 12 Grimmauld Place. Daphne, looking pale and tired, was lying on the sofa. There was a book in her hand, but she was not reading. Instead, she was looking at Tracy sitting opposite. Hermione was just about to call out, not wanting to startle the others when Tracy's words registered. "I know he said he doesn't care, Daphne." Tracy sounded exasperated. "But how will he feel when the Potter line becomes extinct? How will you feel when the Greengrass heiress is not you, but Astoria? Not to mention the Malfoys will be bound to interfere the first chance they get. I know, and I know what I should do, but I just love him so much. How can I give him up to another woman?" Daphne asked tearfully. "If the other woman was also a friend who was fond of you." Hermione had heard enough. She crept softly down the stairs and headed back to the office. She found that Neville had left, but Ron and George were with Harry. Harry jumped up the minute he saw her. "What did Daphne say?" he asked eagerly. Hermione hesitated, but she knew both Ron and George were aware of the situation. "I didn't speak with Daphne, Harry, but Tracy was doing enough talking." "Tracy?" Harry was puzzled. "What does she have to do with anything?" Hermione told them what she had overheard. There was a long moment of silence. Then Ron said slowly, "Makes sense. Tracy is angling to be the second wife." George was nodding. "Right, I've been suspicious since she insisted on moving in." "I bet she's been badgering Daphne, trying to get her to go along with it." Harry's jaw dropped. "But why?" "Harry, you are so eligible," Hermione snapped. "Look at all those proposals you got. Maybe Tracy feels she couldn't possibly do better. And she's gotten to know you," George added. "She knows you wouldn't play the heavy-handed husband like many purebloods do." "Make her move out," Ron jumped in. "She's not helping, and she's upsetting Daphne." "Who shouldn't be upset right now," completed Hermione. "And I'll talk to Daphne and see if I can help." "A surrogate?" Daphne asked doubtfully. "I don't know. That might be an option," Hermione offered. "I don't know what to do," Daphne sighed. "I wish things were different. I wish I was stronger, better." "Muggle saying," Hermione interrupted. "If wishes were horses, then beggars would ride." Daphne managed a smile. "I see what you mean. I just don't know what to do." "Wait," Hermione advised. "Maybe a solution will present itself." It did, the very next day, from a most unexpected quarter. Katie and Susan came to dinner. While this in itself was not unusual, it was clear from the start that they had a purpose in mind. Although the meal, they chatted about inconsequential things. Susan's job at the ministry, Katie's efforts to begin a home renovation business, future legislation at the Wisengamot. Finally, when they were settled in the living room with apple juice for Daphne and wine for the others, Susan began. "Daphne, Harry, we understand the problem with the heirs, and we—" "There is no problem," Harry interrupted. "We've decided we don't need to provide enough heirs for all the lines we can." "Harry," Daphne's voice was unusually sharp. "Let Susan finish." Susan gave Daphne a grateful smile. "George told Katie that you are thinking of using surrogates." Harry opened his mouth to speak, but at a glance from Daphne, he closed it again. "Hermione mentioned the possibility," Daphne said slowly, "but I don't know how that might work." "We do," Katie broke in. "We have a plan where we might help each other out." Harry and Daphne exchanged doubtful glances. Susan said, "You know I am the last remaining member of the House of Bones, and when I die, the line dies with me." Harry nodded. He had known that. Susan had told him she had no other family left. At about the same time, she'd claimed the Bones' seat on the Wisengamot. "I need to provide an heir, so I need what Katie tells me is a sperm donor." Where are you going with this?" Harry didn't see how this could help. "It's simple, Harry." Katie's voice was impatient. "You serve as sperm donor for Susan. Her first child will be the Bones heir, but the second will be the Potter heir." "But how will that work?" Daphne was intrigued but uncertain. "You will keep both children or give the Potter heir to us. That's the best part." Katie was almost bouncing with excitement. "I couldn't help noticing the houses round here. Most of them are in bad shape," Harry said. "But see, I could renovate. I learned a lot about construction from my Muggle grandfather, and I'm planning to start a business. We noticed the place next door, number 13, is boarded up. What if Susan and I were to buy it? I'd fix it up and we could bring up the children together." "But would you really want to live in that gloomy run-down dump?" Daphne couldn't believe her ears. "Harry, it's a Georgian terraced house, similar to this one. It could be gorgeous." "That's right," Susan approved. "Right next door, so we all have access to the children." Harry could see the advantages to the scheme, but he was still unsure. Daphne, however, had no doubts. "It's perfect," she enthused. "We'll make it work. I have to provide the Black heir and Susan the Bones and Potter heirs." "I'd be willing to have the Peveril heir," Katie offered. "I too want a child, and I'm happy with one. We would all benefit." The three women turned pleading eyes on Harry. Harry was hesitant, but he couldn't bear to refuse and watch the hope in their eyes die. Well, Gryffindors forge ahead, he thought. Okay, he said slowly, but I have one condition. The women leaned forward, hanging on every word. I buy the house next door. Everyone was not pleased. Tracy, who had been out with Millicent when Susan and Katie came to dinner, was adamant that the arrangement would never work. You will be quarreling all the time over ways to bring up the children. No one will have absolute say, whereas, if Harry were to take another wife, all major decisions would be his. Can't think of anything worse, grumbled Harry. Tracy's lips were a thin line. For the first time, she reminded Harry of his Aunt Petunia. I suppose now that they will be here, you want me to move out. I believe that would be best, Harry stated. He decided Tracy's presence only caused problems, and he was pleased to be rid of her. You've been a wonderful help, Tracy. Daphne smiled warmly at the other girl. But now that Susan and Katie are moving in, until their own place is ready, we will all have to make adjustments to get along. It was not until Tracy was actually gone that Daphne remarked, So, when are Susan and Katie moving in? Not until the end of the month, Harry admitted. No point in paying rent on that cramped little flat in Diagon Alley, but I purchased 13 Grimmauld Place today. And when I'd done that, it occurred to me that some other houses in the area might be a good investment. Katie was thrilled. So her company is now in partnership with Silver Stag Renovations. That's great, Harry. So how many properties do we now own? Harry grinned. Besides this house and number 13, we now own numbers 4, 6, 9, and 15. I've let it be known I'm interested in buying any others that come onto the market. This could be a wizarding enclave, his wife breathed. Harry, I'm impressed. Don't be too impressed. It will take Katie a while to get these places in shape. But I bet she'll do an amazing job, Daphne approved. The first thing Katie did was make a connecting passage between number 12 and 13. So we all have equal access to the children, Susan announced, in satisfaction. Hermione inserted a note of caution. Make it legal. Suppose you should quarrel someday and decide not to allow such access. Neville backed Hermione. Get everything in a tight contract with no loopholes. Make sure both women and their children are protected in case anything happens to you. Harry hadn't thought of any of that, but could see the benefit. Hermione came up with the contract, and all four signed with a blood quill. Later, alone in the flat they shared, Ron voiced his suspicions. You made sure that Harry comes out smelling like roses, no matter what, didn't you? Hermione blushed. Well, I wanted to make certain no one could possibly take advantage of Harry. What did you do? Ron sounded resigned. I just put in a bit that says, should current relationships ever change, sole custody of all the children reverts to Harry. Ron shook his head. I'm sure those women are trustworthy, Ronald. Hermione was defensive. Still, it's best to provide for all eventualities. Suppose Susan and Katie split up, or something happens to Daphne or one of the others. Ron said no more. He suspected that Hermione feared Daphne would die in childbirth, a fear that he shared. But he'd spent much of his time since the end of the war in trying to atone for abandoning Harry, and he wasn't about to become involved in this. He knew that, despite her friendship with the other women, Hermione would always put Harry's interests first. He decided to try to give Hermione's thoughts a new direction. So, what about our wedding plans? Isn't it time to make arrangements? That did the trick. So, how do we do this? Susan was wide-eyed. Turkey baster, Katie said succinctly. Harry nodded. What if it doesn't work? Daphne was anxious, but Susan just shrugged. Then we try again. But it did work. They got the confirmation on the same day that Daphne went into labor. Late that same night, Daphne gave birth to twin boys. Healer Carmichael confided that he'd been concerned. Harry knew what that meant but tried not to dwell on it. Daphne, weary though she was ecstatic. Sirius James and Regulus Orion, Daphne cheered. Heirs for the House of Black and the House of Greengrass. She was radiant, despite her thinness and exhaustion. Harry was exultant. All was well with his family. Daphne confided she no longer felt like a failure, and their friends heaved sighs of relief. I was so worried, Hermione admitted to Ron later. I was afraid. That Daphne wouldn't survive, she nodded mutely. She's tougher than she seems, Ron consoled. And now Harry only needs 2 more heirs. Are we going to need heirs? Nope, Ron grinned. Lots of other Weasleys to provide heirs. I'm glad. By the time Susan's daughter was born, Katie had finished work on 13 Grimmauld Place. There was a fine nursery for Amelia Catherine Bones, who had her mother's auburn hair and her father's green eyes. Harry privately thought Amelia resembled Lily Potter, but Susan always proudly stated the baby had her own coloring, so Harry said nothing. Katie had begun working on 6 Grimmauld Place, and she decided it was time to have her child, so that the children would attend Hogwarts at a near time. "This house is amazing." Hermione was overwhelmed at the changes Katie had made. "Grimmauld Place will be a wizarding enclave within 10 years, Susan boasted. Harry agreed. He had recently purchased number 7 and had hopes of acquiring 2 more properties by year's end. "I'll keep the freehold, of course," Harry told his wife. "But Ernie Macmillan wants one of the leases, maybe number 6. Who is he planning to marry?" His wife was curious. "Can you believe it, Padma Patil?" "Oh, well, it makes sense," Daphne considered. "It does, why?" "They're both traditionalists," she explained. "But..." Hermione was saying she and Ron would like one of the homes as well. They are marrying soon. In the end, though, the house went to Ernie and Padma, and number 7 next door was earmarked for Parvati Patil and her husband, Lee Jordan. The Patil twins loved the idea of an adjoining passage in the wall between the two, and Katie gladly created one. By now word had spread, and more young witches and wizards were looking for homes. Magicals preferred to live among other magicals to avoid exposing themselves to muggles and violating the Secrecy Act. "Katie will never catch a break," Daphne laughed. In the end, Ron and Hermione opted for 15 Grimmauld Place. "But there's no hurry," Hermione assured Katie. "We aren't going to marry until the summer." Katie was pregnant too, so she decided to relax and take it easy. But apparently taking it easy did not mean a nice vacation. Katie promptly began work on number 7. "Parvati is pregnant and wants to be settled before the baby comes," Katie explained. That didn't happen. Parvati had her little girl, Samira Patil Jordan, soon after. Padma insisted Parvati's home be readied first because of the baby, but almost at once learned she too was pregnant. That same year, she gave birth to 2 boys, and she and Daphne bonded over their mutual motherhood of twins. Katie completed both houses for the Patils, just 3 weeks before she gave birth to Jonathan Harrison Peveril. Meanwhile, Oliver Wood requested a lease on number 9, to which Harry was happy to agree. Oliver, who was keeper for Puddlemere United, planned to wed Penelope Clearwater next spring. Harry was delighted to find Grimmauld Square filling up with so many friends. "But," Daphne said slowly, "none of them are Slytherins. Have any Slytherins inquired?" Harry hadn't heard of any. "Not exactly," Daphne admitted. "Millicent Bulstrode was discussing it with Astoria and Draco. She said she's looking for a new place but thinks you won't want to deal with Slytherins." Daphne had reconciled with Astoria when Astoria's son Scorpius was born 1 month before Sirius and Regulus. Harry's jaw dropped. "Did Astoria happen to mention that my wife is a Slytherin?" "She did," Daphne giggled. "So I expect we'll be hearing from Millicent." What, you don't mind, do you?" "The thing is," Harry explained, "the only property remaining to be renovated is 4 Grimmauld Place, and Percy Weasley wants it." "He does. He wants to marry a Muggle girl. She teaches in London, and Percy works for the ministry, so it would be convenient for them. I didn't agree yet, but I thought you planned to buy more properties here." "I do," Harry admitted. "But the rest of the houses in the square are occupied by Muggles. I can't just throw them out." "Not even if the square is becoming more valuable each day?" Daphne queried. "I know it is," Harry confessed. "Katie is simply amazing." "What am I amazing at?" Katie inquired, entering with Susan and 2 infants. "I knew Harry wouldn't allow us one of the properties," Tracy snapped. "He has always disliked me." "How can you say so?" Daphne was truly amazed. "He threw me out when I told you to reconsider allowing Susan and Katie to bear other heirs for him. I warned you it wouldn't work out, and he is still holding a grudge about it." Millicent's eyes roved from one girl to the other. "That's not true," Daphne protested. "It is," Tracy screamed. "You don't want me to have anything." "No husband, no child, no home. If Harry had taken me as his second wife, I wouldn't have come between you. You can't trust those other 2 to keep their distance." "Katie and Susan only want each other," Daphne insisted. "That's what they say now. Wait until they contrive to get you out of this place like they probably did to me." "You will always have a home with me," said Millicent quietly. "Like I care," sneered Tracy. "I only stayed with you because I had no place else to go." Millicent stared after her as the door slammed shut. "I'm sorry, Daphne. I didn't realize. Well, maybe I should have known." "Millie," Daphne bit her lip. "If you want, Harry might be able to purchase another house in the square soon. If you like, we could keep it for you." "Thanks, Daphne, but I guess it won't be necessary." Millicent stood up and headed for the fireplace. "Diagon Alley," she said firmly. Daphne was upset, but just then the twins awoke from their naps and she was fully occupied. Tracy's outburst slipped her mind. However, she remembered that evening when they were all gathered around the table. Daphne, Harry, Susan, and Katie had soon realized it was simpler for everyone to have dinner together, save for the nights when they had individual engagements or dined out. Susan shook her head when she learned what had happened. "I wouldn't think you'd want Tracy within 100 miles of Grimmauld Square." Katie nodded. "She sounds like she might snap any moment." "She wouldn't," Daphne began, but her voice sounded uncertain. Harry wasn't so sure. "I don't think she is the same person you once knew, Daphne. She resents you now, and I believe she hates me." "Why?" Susan was baffled. Harry shrugged. "I didn't save her from getting maimed by Greyback. I didn't save her mother." "Ridiculous," Katie said firmly. "How could you possibly save everyone?" "She's right," Daphne chimed in. "If not for you, many more people would be dead." "That's so," Harry acknowledged. "But strange as it may seem, many people seem to believe I can save everyone." "You can't," Daphne said. "No one can." Harry nodded but seemed downhearted. "You know what we ought to do," Susan proposed. "Have a party right here on Grimmauld Square in the little park." Harry remembered that Susan had always been an outgoing, social type, friendly with everyone. "We'd invite all the people living here?" Katie asked doubtfully. "Hereabouts. Some of the people from the Stag and Rose, too." "And friends from school, why not?" Harry hesitated. "The Secrecy Act," Susan was unconcerned. "The Magicals know and the Muggles won't realize if everyone is cautious." It surprised Harry how delighted everyone seemed to be with the idea. "A street party," Gemma enthused. "We used to go to them all the time," Tom agreed. "It's a great idea. We'll contribute a few cases of ale and cider." Word spread quickly. Almost every resident in Grimmauld Square and the adjoining streets decided to participate. Susan extended the invitation to include the members of the DA. Katie invited all of the Hogwarts Quidditch teams. Daphne asked some Slytherins she knew. Harry knocked at the door of number 11, which he knew was occupied by Muggles. From within, he could hear music playing. He knocked again. Finally, the door opened. A young man with a scruffy beard peered out at Harry. Harry explained about the party, and the man seemed interested. "It's for everyone," Harry nodded. "Do you want any music?" "Music? I'm in a band," the man explained. "Cerberus ever heard of us?" He seemed disappointed when Harry shook his head. "Well, we might play for an hour or so if you want." "That sounds very nice." "Simone, I'll ask the others." Harry followed the man into number 11. "I'm Malcolm Cates, call me Mal." Number 11 was not as bad as number 12 had once been, but still it looked slightly shabby. Mal led the way into the kitchen, where 2 girls and 3 other men sat around the table. "Everyone, this is Harry Potter, lives next door. Meet Emma, Lacey, Jason, Rob, and Rolf." Harry's eyes widened as he recognized Rolf Scamander, a young wizard he'd once encountered at a ministry function. Rolf was from a very old and well-known magical family. So you're all in the band," he said slowly, trying to conceal his surprise. Emma laughed. "No, just Mal, Jason, Rob, and me. Rolf is my boyfriend, and Lacey is Mal's sister." The others all seemed friendly, except for the thin, dark girl named Lacey. "Are you the man who's been buying up all the properties in the square?" she demanded. "Yes," Harry admitted, wondering why she seemed so angry. "My business partner is restoring them bit by bit." Lacey's mouth tightened. "And I suppose you're fine with that?" "Well, yeah, why not?" "You can't really prefer to have them boarded up and falling down." "What I'd prefer, Mr. Potter, is for normal people to live here and not be turfed out for rich people." Harry might have felt sympathy if she hadn't stressed normal people. It reminded him of the Dursleys and instantly put his back up. "No one is being turfed out," he said, making no effort to hide his annoyance. "The houses I've bought were all empty and up for sale. I haven't, for example, purchased this one." She opened her mouth to say something, but Mal cut her off. "Give it a rest, Lacey. Harry came to invite us to a street party, not to be sniped at." Katie was indignant when she heard what Lacey had said. "Really? Does she want the house to fall down around her? To be fair." "Number 11 isn't that bad," murmured Susan. "Maybe, but lots of these places were uninhabitable. I've restored them and now they are desirable places to live. I can't see anything wrong with that." "Never mind," Daphne soothed. "Her house isn't one of them and we're not angling to buy it. Maybe if the party is a success, everyone will feel better about the neighborhood." "So we're using Muggle lights?" Ron asked, baffled. "Honestly, Ron," Hermione shook back her bushy brown hair. "We have to. Lots of the guests are Muggles, so we can't use anything magical. But this makes things a lot harder," George grumbled. It looks pretty anyway. Angelina surveyed the square in satisfaction. It does, Hermione approved. You'd never know it for the same place. It looks so much better than it did when we all used to stay here. And I suppose you're thrilled about that, said a voice behind her. Hermione whirled to see Lacey standing there with the rest of the band, including Rolf Scamander, but it was hard to cow Hermione. Of course, why wouldn't I be? Lacey opened her mouth to retort, but Mal quickly stepped in front of her. We thought we'd set up over there. He waved toward a cluster of trees. They headed in that direction, but Rolf hung back. Just so you know, they didn't hear anything, just when you said the place looks better now. Hermione breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks, I should have been more careful. She looked at him more closely. Are you that Scamander? He laughed, and it transformed his thin face. Newt Scamander is my grandfather. Wow, Ron blurted. He's as famous as Harry, and he dislikes his fame almost as much, Rolf explained. More than Harry? Inquired a surprised voice. That would be hard. Hermione glanced back and smiled at a small blonde girl dressed in a bright yellow and green striped dress. Hello, Luna, you're back from Sweden then. Yes, Luna turned her pale, dreamy gaze on her friends. We failed to find the crumple-horned snorkack, though. Better luck next time, George offered. Still, I am glad to be home in time for the party, Luna said. And to meet you, she told Rolf. You didn't go to Hogwarts with us. It wasn't a question, but Rolf said, no, my grandmother is American, so I went to school in the States. But I'm happy to meet you all now. He strolled away with Luna, and the others relaxed. It's going to be hard to live in such a mixed neighborhood, observed George. Like that Muggle expression, walking on eggshells. Everyone can't live in Diagon Alley, Angelina answered. Yes, Neville said thoughtfully. But if Hannah and I didn't live above the Leaky, I would like to live here. I love it. Penelope Clearwater, soon to be Penelope Wood, joined her friends. It's nice to have so many friends around. I'd be lonely if I lived someplace in the middle of nowhere. Still, it will be hard to keep secrets. Hermione was frowning. Nah, Ron said cheerfully. Soon the Muggles will all be gone and then there's no problem. What do you mean? Hermione asked. Well, as they move away, Harry will buy up more houses, or else other Magicals will. This is looking like a great place to live, like Neville said. I don't think Harry would want people to move out just to buy properties, frowned Hermione. But if he doesn't, others probably will, said Penelope slowly. At least if Harry does, there'd be some control. I mean, we'd hate to have former Death Eaters move in. They're mostly dead or in prison, George pointed out. But their children aren't, scowled Angelina. Neville, always the peacemaker, interrupted. No point in worrying about things that haven't happened. Let's enjoy the day. The elves did a great job with the food. Susan took a huge bite of chocolate cake. They did, Daphne smiled, but that particular cake was made by Harry. A man who can cook, sighed Susan. How did we get so lucky? Think I'll have a second piece. After all, I'm eating for two. So am I, Angelina squealed. Just for a second, Daphne looked wistful, but then she grinned. Good for you. Susan eyed her keenly. You don't mind at all? No, Daphne said honestly. Ever since you and Katie came into our lives, things have been wonderful. I'd have liked more Bobbies, but I am thankful for what I have. And thankful for you, Katie, Amelia, and Jonathan. She realized it was true. She loved Amelia and Jonathan as much as she did her twins, and she had no doubt she'd love Susan's new baby as well. Just then Harry and George strolled towards them, Harry carrying little Amelia while George held his son Freddie. Look who woke up, Harry grinned. MMA. Amelia chirruped, smiling at Susan. Freddie merely pointed to the cake. Daphne reached for the little girl. I'll take her, Susan. Finish your cake. Thanks, Daphne. This cake is incredible, Harry, Angelina told him. If you ever get tired of your other business ventures, you could always open a bakery. That would be better than remodeling the entire square. Lacey was back, scowling at them. And what's wrong with that? Katie had turned up to glare at Lacey. She leaned down to kiss Susan and then Amelia. The baby gave her a toothless smile. MMA, Lacey looked baffled. Whose baby is she? Harry had had enough. You might say she belongs to all of us. And so do Regulus and Sirius and Jonathan, Susan mentioned. What do you mean? Katie folded her arms. Susan is my partner. Harry is the father and he's married to Daphne. We're all family. Lacey's jaw dropped and she stared at Harry. You're their sperm donor. But isn't it awkward living right next door? Daphne jumped in. No, why should it be? As Katie said, we are all family. Lacey said no more, but it was clear she didn't approve. She turned and strode off, heading for the band, who were having a break. Well, what of it, Lace? Mal asked his sister. None of our business. Well, I think it's weird. Emma shrugged. Seems like a practical solution to me. Say, have you seen Rolf? Over there, Mal pointed to the opposite side of the square. Who's that he's talking to? Her name is Luna Lovegood, offered Jason. Half the people here went to school together and she's one of them. Oh, what school? Lacey pressed. Jason shrugged. Boarding school in Scotland, I didn't catch the name. Too bad they didn't stay in Scotland, Lacey groused. I think they're nice, Rob put in. I mean, you couldn't really expect all these places to stay as they are forever. That's not the way it works. Neighborhoods decline, then gentrify. He pouted but said no more. Emma headed off towards Rolf, who was still talking to Luna Lovegood. Rolf, wanna get some cake? He didn't seem to hear her, but Luna beamed, a smile Emma found strangely unsettling. You should, Luna approved. Harry makes delicious cakes. Rolf didn't stir, so Emma tugged his arm. He blinked at her. Cake, she prompted. Sure. He turned back to Luna. I hope we'll meet again, Luna. Oh, we will. The blonde was unconcerned. At Yule, if not before. Yule, Luna nodded. It's meant to be, she said softly. She skipped away, and Rolf followed her with his eyes. Emma felt uneasy. The party went so well, Susan was pleased. Everyone had a good time. Yes, we should do something for Yule or perhaps for New Year's Eve. Daphne was thoughtful. An open house, Susan nodded in approval. Definitely. I knew it, Lacey waved the letter at her brother. I knew that man couldn't be trusted. You don't know he is the one angling to buy this place, Mal pointed out. Who else? He's bought up most of the square already. Rolf shook his head. I don't think so. Harry said he only bought properties that were decrepit and boarded up. He's not a liar. It doesn't matter. Once you start fixing everything to look gorgeous, other people start trying to buy in. And then the ones who lived here before have to come up with a ton of money, which they probably can't afford or else move out. Let me talk to Harry, Rolf suggested. No, you don't even stay here most of the time. I'll talk to him and give him a piece of my mind. Lacey jumped up and headed for the door. Go with her, Rolf, Emma urged. The last thing we need is trouble with the neighbors. But I haven't been angling to buy number 11, Harry protested. I told you I only bought the places abandoned or boarded up. None of the houses I bought were occupied. Lacey folded her arms. So then who is trying to buy our house if not you? Katie studied the letter Lacey had handed her. We could inquire at the estate agents, she suggested. Maybe we could find out. Lacey deflated. Even if you did, I doubt it will make a difference. Now that this place is such a desirable locale, someone is sure to buy in, even if it isn't you. It isn't, Daphne promised. Someone is attempting to buy number 14, Hermione informed them. Number 11 and number 14. Susan said thoughtfully, surrounding us, I don't like that. Ron helped himself to more potatoes. Don't see what any of us could do about it. Those properties are so close to us. Daphne sounded nervous. I know, I hope they go to Magicals, Katie added. Harry frowned. I could simply outbid the original buyer, he suggested. Hermione nodded. I think you should, Harry. I know you only plan to buy the empty properties, but this way we won't know the residents and it's risky. Harry knocked at the door of number 11 and Emma answered. Hello, Harry, come in. He looked at her red eyes. Is something wrong, Emma? Rolf broke up with me, she answered after a moment. I mean, I know things weren't perfect, but I thought everything would work out. Face it, Lacey snapped. He's met someone else and you're out in the cold. Lacey, Mal sighed. Do you have to be so bitchy? Lacey flushed and said no more. Look, Harry began, I just stopped by to tell you that I outbid the other buyer for this house and acquired the freehold. So now you don't need to worry. I'm the new owner and I won't be raising the rent. Lacey opened her mouth to say something, but Malcolm cut her off. Thanks, Harry. Harry nodded and took his leave. He had a sense that he really wasn't welcome at number 11. So who was it? Katie demanded. Tracy Davis, Harry admitted. What? Daphne yelled. No way. Tracy could never have afforded one of these places. That's so, Susan nodded. Maybe when we first moved in, but now, a Georgian townhouse in London is worth a fortune. She could never come up with the money. So she has a silent partner, Katie suggested. But who? Daphne wondered. She was like me at Hogwarts. Neither of us had any other friends unless Millicent. I doubt it. Millicent was pretty upset with Tracy, someone Tracy works with. It was Ron who discovered the answer. He's Zabini, he snarled. He's been making up to Ginny. Ginny wants to live here, Susan was skeptical. What she wants is to play Quidditch professionally, Hermione told them. That means lots of travel time. It's Blaise who wants a home base, and Blaise who has the money to buy in. Except he won't buy in, Harry told them. I outbid him for numbers 11 and 14. You don't know Blaise, said Daphne uneasily. He won't give up. What choice does he have? Hermione demanded. He will do something, I know. Blaze was a chameleon at school. He pretended to be whatever the person he was talking to wanted him to be. But he never cared about anyone except Blaze. The way he treated Pansy. Pansy. Everyone thought she was wild about Malfoy, Katie objected. Daphne demurred. She might have been to start, but once Harry took down Voldemort, Pansy was, well, let's say not a desirable match. Draco chose Astoria, and luckily for him, she was loyal to him. Pansy was scrambling and couldn't believe her luck when Blaze began courting her. But what about Ginny? Ron roared. That's the thing, Daphne said sadly. Blaze used Pansy and discarded her, but not before humiliating her in every possible way. I think that's the reason she moved to Ireland. Susan nodded. She probably wanted to get away from most of the people who know her and make a fresh start. So now you think Blaze is using Tracy? Daphne looked troubled. I hope not. She must know that Blaze would never marry a half-blood, so Tracy will end up like Pansy. But would it really be a problem? Hermione asked. I mean, if Blaze did marry Ginny and move next door. I don't know, Katie said hesitantly. I mean, I like Ginny, but I don't really know Blaze. I just prefer different neighbors, said Susan firmly. Not Muggles, though. It's just too awkward keeping secrets. Susan gave birth to Lily Lyra Potter during an unseasonably warm day in early October. There, Katie beamed. You have all the heirs you need, Harry. I know, Harry said in satisfaction, but I'm pleased to have as many children as come along. Don't look at me, Katie replied. The business is taking off and I'm happy with Jonathan. Daphne looked wistful. I'd love more children, but no, said Harry firmly. It isn't safe for you. Anyway, we have 5, said Susan happily. Daphne managed a reluctant smile. I know, but I would have loved a little girl. You have 1. Susan handed Amelia to Daphne. Yes, I do. Daphne pressed a kiss onto a rosy little cheek. Number 14, Harry tried to breathe. But it will be fine, Harry. Luna's face was, as usual, serene. I like to travel, and so does Rolf. We will hardly be there until we have children, of course, she added. But you just met Rolf, Harry said weakly. Luna smiled. When it's right, you know. Rolf asked to meet, and Harry agreed. They took a corner booth in the Stag and Rose, and Harry stared at Rolf accusingly. Well, I know what you're thinking, Rolf said quietly. Luna is everything to me. Harry glared at the other man. And Emma. I cared for Emma, Rolf admitted. But I always knew it wouldn't be forever. Neither of us felt it would be something permanent. Harry shook his head. I can't refuse Luna anything. She stood by me when so many others. Well, she is a tried and trusted friend. Let's leave it at that. So we can have the house. Harry felt he had no choice but to agree. I hope she's not making a mistake. Hermione was worried. She hardly knows Rolf. He's a scamander, Ron offered. Good family. He might be the one bad apple, Hermione objected. Not just because he and Emma broke up. After all, not everyone stays together forever. I suppose. But Hermione was unconvinced. Ron decided to change the subject. Audrey wants to start a primary school as soon as the kids are old enough. Hermione remembered that Percy's wife had been a school teacher before their marriage. At their house. Yeah, lots of kids in the neighborhood now. But what about accidental magic? Ron shrugged. Maybe by the time the kids are old enough, the Muggles will be gone. Susan put Lily down for a nap and turned her attention to her older daughter. Ready, Amelia? The little girl nodded, eager to go see Auntie Hannah. Susan lifted her into the stroller and looked at Daphne. We won't be long. I just need to get out for a bit. Take your time, Daphne said. It's a beautiful day. Yes, I plan a walk. It'll help lose some baby weight. Diagon Alley was crowded as usual, and the leaky cauldron was busy. They greeted Hannah, but she was rushed off her feet and scarcely had a moment to talk. Susan shrugged philosophically and headed for Fortescue's. On such a pleasant day, ice cream would taste wonderful. She couldn't resist a double scoop of her favorite salted caramel. After all, she would be sharing with Amelia. But when she wheeled the stroller to one of the outside tables, she realized the toddler was fast asleep. As she sat down to enjoy her frozen treat, someone called to her. Susan turned to see her old friend, Justin Finch-Fletchley, standing on the other side of the low stone wall that surrounded Fortescue's. She stepped closer. Yes, we live in Grimmauld Place, she told her friend. I heard that's one of the most popular areas for wizards these days, Justin remarked. I don't suppose there are any vacancies. Not at the moment. Are you house hunting? I'm engaged, he informed her. To Lisa Turpin. We plan to marry early next spring. Well, there's still some houses occupied by Muggles, but I'd like to see the square become entirely magical soon. Let me know if one of the houses becomes available. Of course, Susan beamed. She'd never truly liked living amongst Muggles, especially with some right next door. She bid farewell to Justin and turned back to Amelia. The stroller was empty. Susan's screams echoed down Diagon Alley. Aurors swarmed Diagon Alley, questioning everyone they could find, but no one had seen a thing. Justin ended up taking a hysterical Susan to St. Mungo's, then calling 12 Grimmauld Place. Harry and Neville, alerted by the Aurors, joined in the sweep of the alley. Daphne paced the living room, trying to think of anything that would help. She'd already flu-called their friends, and as word spread, the entire neighborhood joined in, even Tom and Gemma. But as the day wore on and evening fell, hope began to fade. Lacey headed down Kensington High Street, lugging her bag and trying to navigate through the crowds. She really hated shopping, but her shoes were falling to pieces and her jeans were more holes than cloth. So she'd gone out early, and now she couldn't wait to get home. Ahead of her on the pavement, a tired toddler began wailing. "Stop that!" The woman jerking the child by the hand whirled around and slapped her. Lacey fumed. Why have children if you were only going to mistreat them? She glared at the woman as she passed, then paused. The little girl was crying harder, but she was a pretty little thing with red hair and big green eyes. Wait, she'd seen that child before. The woman raised her hand again to strike the child, and Lacey caught her arm. "What? Just 1 minute," Lacey scowled at her. "I know that child and you're not her mother. Why do you have her?" "I'm taking care of her," the woman growled. "Well, you're not doing a good job. I think I'd better take her along with me and tell her parents how you've been treating her. And I think you'd better get away from us right now." Lacey spotted a thin stick in the woman's hand, just as she started to intone obliquely. Lacey swung her heavy shopping bag with spot-on accuracy, making the woman stumble. Lacey followed that up with a hard shove that sent the woman tumbling to the ground, the stick flying out of her hand. "Hit me with that stick, will you?" "I don't think so," Lacey yelled. "Not so much fun, is it, when you pick on someone your own size?" She'd intended to take the tube home, but just then a bus pulled to a stop a few paces ahead. Lacey seized the toddler's hand, and they hopped aboard the bus together. "Come on, kiddo. I think we'd both like to go home." "Home," piped the child, staring at Lacey with her big green eyes. As the bus pulled away into London traffic, Lacey glanced back and saw the woman frantically scrambling for her stick, but just as she almost had it, a passerby stepped on it. She felt a spurt of satisfaction watching the stick splinter. "That'll teach her." "Home," the toddler reminded her. "Not to worry, kiddo, we're on our way." Daphne was scouring the neighborhood, hopping to catch a glimpse of Amelia. Luna walked with her, pale eyes darting everywhere. "Try not to worry, Daphne. A blibbering humdinger told me that Amelia will be fine and they are never wrong." They passed Tom and Gemma, who shook their heads sadly. "Who could have taken her?" Daphne asked sadly. "I hope not someone dangerous. Harry has enemies." "He also has fans," Luna pointed out. "Perhaps it's just someone who wants to cuddle Harry's child for a bit and will return her soon." Just then, a red bus pulled into a stop ahead of them, and a young woman staggered out, trying to balance a bulky shopping bag and a fractious toddler. Daphne shrieked and dashed forward. "Amelia!" The little girl looked up and broke into a joyous smile. "Mommy!" Daphne held her close. "Oh, it's you." Lacey frowned at the two women. "Good, I wanted to give you a piece of my mind. What were you thinking, hearing a babysitter like that? She slapped Amelia and tried to hit me with a stick. You need to find better child care." "A woman?" Luna inquired, since Daphne couldn't speak at the moment. "What did she look like?" Short dark hair, freckled skin, and brown eyes. Oh, and she had a scar on her face and neck." Daphne found her voice. "Tracy, oh, how could she?" "Like I said, I wouldn't trust her with your little girl again." Daphne scrambled to her feet. "Don't worry, I never will. And thank you from the bottom of my heart." And she caught the astonished Lacey in a fierce hug that just about took her breath away. "Aurors picked up Tracy," Harry whispered to Daphne as they made their way into the garden where everyone was gathered. "Did she say why she did it?" Harry took a deep breath. "She seemed to resent us, well, you in particular. She said you have everything and didn't want her to have anything, so she wanted to take something from you. She needs help." "Yes, I'm going to see that Tracy gets to consult a mind healer. Hopefully, she will be sent to St. Mungo's rather than Azkaban." The garden was crowded. Susan sat in the center, Amelia on her lap, and she had insisted on Lacey sitting beside her. The elves had prepared snacks and drinks, but since the crowd was a mix of magical and muggle, Luna, Penelope, and Parvati had volunteered to serve, allowing the elves to remain out of sight. "This is gorgeous." Lacey gazed around at the garden, dazed. "Wish we had something like this." "You will," Harry promised. "The Silver Stag Landscaping will make you a garden gratis. We owe you for saving Amelia." Really? Lacey's face lit up. We can pay, objected Mal. Tom and Gemma have hired Cerberus to play at their pub so we can afford some renovations. So renovate, Daphne was firm. But not on the garden. Lacey rescued Amelia, so we are making you a garden. Susan nodded vigorously and hugged Lacey again. I can't ever repay what you did for us, but anything I can do, I want to be friends. Lacey was still a bit baffled at her sudden popularity, but not displeased. I could use some more good friends. You have us, Daphne promised, as Susan, Katie, and Harry nodded wordlessly. After that day, no one in Grimmauld Square ever again expressed a wish that the Muggles would be gone. Cerberus never became a huge success, but they played regularly at the Stag and Rose, which was heavily patronized by all the residents of Grimmauld Square. Susan decided she wanted a third child. Harry was happy to oblige, and Edgar Charles Potter was born the following year. Audrey Weasley happily established a primary school. Mostly residents of the square attended. The old woman occupying number 16 died that fall. Thanks to a heads-up from Susan, Justin Finch Fetchley and Lisa Turpin snapped up the property, narrowly beating out Blaise Zabini. This resulted in yet another project for Katie, who was now in demand in many other parts of London. Holidays were frequently marked by parties in the square. One outstanding event was the wedding of Luna Lovegood and Rolf Scamander. The Silver Stag Corporation branched out beyond potions, plants, landscaping, and home renovations. Soon they acquired 2 media outlets and began expanding to sports programming and historical reenactments. The 6 children of Harry Potter eventually attended Hogwarts. They were sorted into every house. There was also a great deal of intermarriage among the residents of the square. The eldest child, Sirius James Black, married Alice Augusta Longbottom, the only child of his father's business partner, thus cementing the Potter/Longbottom alliance. Regulus Greengrass wed Olivia Wood, while Amelia Bones married Hugo Weasley. Jonathan Peveril eventually proposed to Sophia Finch Fetchley, and Lily Potter married Lorcan Scamander. The only one of Harry's children who did not marry a denizen of the square was Edgar, who, while on holiday in Provence, met and fell in love with the youngest daughter of Gabrielle de Lacquer. Eventually, family gatherings became almost as large as the Grimmauld Square street parties. Daphne, Susan, Katie, and Harry never forgot what they owed Lacey Cates, and she was always welcome in their home. Lacey eventually married Rob, and they both frequently visited their friendly, if rather odd, neighbors. Grimmauld Square never became a fully wizarding enclave, mostly because the wizards became too fond of their muggle neighbors to allow that to happen.